Fantastic. So good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be here with you in these strange times. My name is Guja Sandholt, and I'm the Artistic Director of Reykjavík Opera Days. And this is the first event of our festival this year. We had to postpone, of course, everything because of the restrictions. But Helgi and we thought it might be nice to, instead of having a symposium in the Nordic House in Reykjavík like we planned, to do an online event and see how that works. It's the first time I'm doing this kind of an event, and I think Helgi too, or as an admin. So we'll hope that the technical things will be favorable and that everything will go smoothly. We've got a wonderful list of speakers presenting, but the idea was to have an inspiring chat about creative projects that people have been able to do despite of COVID. So I'm sure that most of us have been feeling that it's difficult to cope with, but in this symposium we want to try to shine light on the inspiring part of it if we can, and the positive sides, if there are any. Reykjavík Opera Days, just a few words about our festival. It's a relatively young festival founded in 2016. And the idea behind it was to make a festival in Iceland in a scene where there was not much the classical vocal art and opera music theater scene was not very active, like in the grassroots was not very active. We have the Icelandic Opera, which does traditional productions twice per year, but we wanted to do something new and exciting. And since then, we've had 3 festivals. This is the 4th one starting now with flexible dates. And we emphasize, we want to form new partnerships. We focus on innovation and growing the classical vocal scene, opera and musical theatre in Iceland and internationally. We've been lucky enough to get support from the Nordic cultural funds, making it a more international festival, which makes us very excited. And the events that what we want to do is to collaborate, interconnect music, poetry, and other art forms, dance, and be creative and experimental. So that's who we are. And Helgi, he has been helping, doing a lot of things for the festival in the past few years, and now he's the moderator, and I'm going to give the word to him. He's going to help us through all the technical things and present the presenters. So enjoy. Thank you for being here today, and I look forward to hearing the presentations. Have fun.
Thank you, Guja. Very good. Really good to see so many people here. Very exciting. Just to start with, just want to recommend that everybody puts their Zoom into speaker view. And today we have 7 short presentations from very inspiring artists and leaders in stage arts. And yes, I would ask you all to mute yourself. Only the presenters should be unmuted. Thank you. So we have 7 short presentations from very inspiring artists and leaders in the field of stage arts from around Europe. We have split these talks into 2 halves with a short lunch break in between. After each presentation, there will be a short Q&A where you can ask your questions. If you have any questions for the speakers, please write them in the text chat, and I will keep my eye on it and then hand the mic over to you, and you can ask your question. And it would be good if you introduced yourself a little bit before. At the end of our event, around 20 to 2, we will open the floor up so anyone can share their thoughts, comments, or questions relating to our theme or the works that were presented here today. And just letting you know that this event is being recorded, so we can then share the message even further on our website. And we'll share the link with you on the Facebook page after this. And I just want to remind you that the theme of this event is to share solutions, inspiration, and positivity. There is enough negativity and pessimism going around in society today and in the media because of COVID and other issues. But we want to try and leave that at the door and just focus on these works and see what's working and what's exciting out there. And we're very lucky to have a great collection of projects with us and groups with us today. And they all managed to produce or perform their stage art in line with COVID restrictions wherever they were performed. And I'd like to introduce the first one, which is the first group, which is Vente Verelset, with my very thick Icelandic accent, from Denmark. And are you there?
Yes, we are. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting us to this great arrangement. We're looking very much forward to present our piece, and thank you for taking initiative to also focusing on the more positive sides of what happened and is happening in the artistic field. But as you said, we are the Danish-based opera collective called Venteværelset, or in English, the Waiting Room. My name is Anna Sophie Keller, and I am the director. And this is Þorgunur.
Yeah, hi, I'm Þorgunur, and I'm one of the singers in Venteværelset.
And we have a small presentation here, so we will do a shared screen so you can follow along there. We hope it works. See, we put it on. And while Þorgunur is putting it on, I can say that we are a group of young professionals, all based in Denmark, who gathered in the very early phase of the Danish lockdown. Everything happened very fast. I'm normally based and live in Berlin, but due to lockdown, I had to go home. And already in my way in my taxi to the airport, I felt a very strong urge to react on this very extreme situation. So I reached out, I think it was like on day 2 on the lockdown in Denmark, I reached out to a group of singers and musicians, and we talked about we had to do something because firstly, everybody lost their jobs within extremely short notice. And secondly, we really felt that it was super important to somehow document this phase, this very strange times, document them in an artistic project. So we gathered, and within, I think, less than a week, we had an artistic collective with 16 people, classical musicians, singers, opera singers, and a production team. And now, almost like half a year later, we have been touring. We have had 3 tours with our project, which was a live opera, a new edition of Dido and Aeneas called An Isolation opera by the composer Henry Purcell, and we had an online format. We played 12 live shows, and we have another show today. But first, we want to show a little teaser from the process.
Just to ask, because when I put on full screen, I can't see you guys anymore. So do you see the slideshow?
Yeah, it's very clear.
It's very clear.
Okay, wait. So now I'm gonna. So you can see it now. Now it's full screen.
Now it's full screen, and we also see your face, so it's very nice.
Okay, great. So we can't see our faces. That's maybe good. So we're not looking at ourselves.
So let's see the teaser.
Yeah.
Do you stay up with
So what you saw here was just a small clips of our first tour. But before we got to this live tour, we had a 6-week-long rehearsal phase where we only met online. Everything was structured, so we met over Zoom, and very fast we got this very strong routine where we actually had meetings every day. And that was a very interesting way of meeting each other as a collective. Maybe you can say a bit how it was to meet your co-singers in the first.
Yeah, you had kind of created these online personas of everyone in your head, because it was people you hadn't ever met before, and then for example, Aeneas, who was I was singing Dido, and Aeneas, she was much shorter than I had realized on screen, so you had to be prepared for the thing on the online rehearsals, that you couldn't really sense the room, sense the other people. So when we actually met, you had to kind of adjust, just in a way, yeah.
So that was also very interesting, because as a director, I really met the entire team online. So it also was a way of forming the piece. I had very intimate meetings with everybody because I met them in their own private home. And we used this space in order to also create the characters from these private sides I experienced when I met Thorken online in that way. And also we created very fast a manifest that was inspired by the regulation from the government. So for instance, we couldn't know when we premiered, which was very interesting to work production-wise. You always really aim for the goal when you work with a production. And here we really didn't know if the phase was about to have, this production phase could last for months or weeks. We just knew that as soon as Mette Frederiksen, our Prime Minister, would allow us to meet again outside, we would premiere. We discussed a lot, okay, where to premiere, how can we do this? Should we do an online opera, or should we meet outside? And we really, in the end, insisted upon the fact that we really wanted to do live opera project. So we were informed and inspired by this balcony concerts they had in Italy. So we created and designed the piece to be able to premiere in backyards, because we wanted to also to go out to new audience groups who couldn't attend the theaters were closed. So we premiered our first show in a backyard where people attended the show from their balconies and from their windows. Aesthetically, we were also inspired by what we saw around us. We played with masks and sanitizers. We also designed the set design inspired by how we first met in these Zoom squares. It was also very interesting because we couldn't. The fact that we couldn't sing together. We were producing an opera, but we actually, the first 6 weeks of this rehearsal period, we couldn't hear each other. We could only guide each other from square to square, as you see on this picture. We divided the square, so this is the square when we see each other on Zoom, and we can show a little film about how we did that in real life. We're actually sitting, I painted, yeah, you can see here, you can play the movie. You can maybe take off the sound. So what I did was I had I got the singers to divide their private rooms into squares, and then I I painted it, and then I could say, okay, Josefine, you have to stay in square 1, and Thorgunnar, you have to go in square 2, and then I could actually direct like 4 singers or duets or choir parts by like mirroring everything. So as you see here, it was like quite complicated, but in the end we actually staged an entire opera in that way. And
yeah. This was, of course, a very new way of working for us as a singer, where you couldn't actually sing during the rehearsals, and you had to
can we see it again?
You had to work in a different way, but it had its perks. You of course then could just go straight from your pajamas and into rehearsals in 5 minutes, but Anna really created a clear frame of working, and these squares were kind of, it made it possible to visualize the scene, although you didn't have an actual scene.
Yeah. And that's also interesting, because when we rehearsed that way, there was also this question of props and set design and costumes, because we couldn't meet and we couldn't get material from elsewhere. So we decided that one of our principles in our manifest was also that all the set design should come from the homes where we were in isolation. And that also informed this you can see it's very colorful aesthetics, and we were with a kind of punk aesthetic, where everybody found one of our our costume. We talked about costumes, but everybody found something they had at home, and we actually managed to do a strong aesthetic from that. And we had like our first costume rehearsal, also like some kind of fashion show online, where everybody tried out different kind of clothing, and we could choose who could use what. And that also led us to this fact that, okay, this is a new way of producing opera, that you actually can produce it quite sustainable if you are willing to like really use what you already have. And we also wanted to be very easy for us to move around, because we wanted to move from backyard to backyard. So we made a principle that was, okay, we can only have that many props as everybody can carry in a box on a bike. So we could drive around in Copenhagen to different backyards. Also because this box, you can see it maybe in the middle of the square on the picture. It's a very traditional way of, it's like an old singer's tradition in Denmark, that long time ago people came to these backyards and singing, and then got money in their hat, and they were standing on these old wooden boxes. And we wanted also to tap into that tradition. Should we take the next slide, if that's possible? And maybe one more. Yeah, so then when we met for the first time, we had 6 very compromised days when we were allowed to gather again. We were still keeping a lot of distance. That was also this square we painted. It was also due to distance rules. So we are playing with 2 meters apart from each other and from everybody who attends the show. But we also had this rule that we couldn't be more than 10, because in Denmark it was all the time like groups of 10 who were allowed together. So that also meant that the singers had to do two roles, everybody. And also some of the musicians took roles, and we really had to be very, very spontaneous, and also somehow compromise with the perfection, which I'm also working a lot with immersive performance art. And for me as a director, it was a very interesting thing to explore what can we get out of this way of really just have 6 days where we met. So we had musical rehearsals and stage rehearsals, and people were playing like 2 roles, and then we premiered. So it's like this spontaneousness, how can we actually use that as something positive? And from my point of view, the singers were so alert. And there was a lot of things which wasn't perfect, which developed over, we played these 12 shows in 3 different tours, developed and became better and better, but also like daring to show some imperfections somehow along the run.
Yeah. And this whole period really demanded that you were on your toes and always ready, because we didn't know when Mette Fredriksson would allow us to actually perform the show. And I also had to study the role of Dido. I think it was 2 weeks before we premiered. Our Dido quit, so I had to take on that role as well. So it was you really had to just throw yourself into the pool, as you say in Icelandic. I don't know if you say that in English. And this demanded that you kind of maybe lower your expectations to yourselves a little bit. Your usual demand of perfection and having each tone, especially as you like it, and accepting these imperfections, it also gave you a sense of freedom, and that the focus went from you as a performer to the piece as a whole, and creating something together, and that it didn't have to be perfect, but you would maybe get something else instead.
Also because we really experienced, because we came out to these new places. We played for like student homes and challenging areas in Copenhagen. We played in Christiania, we played in playgrounds. And it was much more about giving people who have been isolated for such a long time the possibility to explore live classical music, and people who have never experienced opera before.
Yeah, and that was really interesting, that we asked after every performance, is there anyone here that's hearing opera for the first time? And every time there were maybe, I don't know, from 10 to 30 people that were hearing opera for the first time. So this also was new audience that gives you new inspiration, and you also had to be very flexible as a performer, because you didn't know how the space would be, you didn't know how the acoustics would be, so you had to be prepared for that beforehand, that things wouldn't be exactly how you visualize them, but you will get something else instead.
Yeah, true. And also, because we had to also adjust the sound expectation. We also, as you can see, we rearranged all the music to a very odd ensemble. We have like, because we had to be mobile, so we have accordion instead of cembalo, for instance, or we had bass clarinet. We had like a very interesting ensemble, but we actually managed to play, to do the entire piece in a very, good form. We also worked with an actress who is playing the leading role of Aeneas. So we challenged these like ideas of really certain way of expressing these roles, also in order to be pragmatic, because we were very inspired about, like, in the Baroque times, they were also very pragmatic. And so we like this liveness. We were like, okay, this is the cast we have, then people have to do 2 roles, and we have an actor, she's playing this role very well, and she also communicated very well with new audience groups, and it created a new kind of sound picture. And also, when we started on like a volunteer basis, because everybody just had canceled all their jobs, and we wanted really to do something meaningful during this time, also in hope of getting the possibility to tour with this piece later, and also to have it as some kind of living documentation for this period. Because what we experienced was that we had really strong emotions, and when we had this piece, we could understand what was happening to us through analyzing the characters and the music, because opera has also everything to do with strong emotions, like these about love and life and death and loneliness. We could really we felt so attached to these strong themes. And on the other hand, we could also let the piece be informed from what was happening around us. So we also talked a lot about the politicians when we like did the characters and so on. And so in the first phase we worked on a volunteer basis, but then we won a prize, and then we managed to collect funding. And on this, so the first phase we had live shows primarily for in backyards and for younger audiences. And then the second phase, if you go to we were supported, and we could manage to like pay for some of our wigs and so on. And the third phase, we were being funded by Augustinusfonden as well, so we could tour again and we could develop the piece more. And now today we have our first indoor show at a library, so we still stick to the fact that we want to play like in a very open setting, and we want to like democratize the opera we're always talking about. And we just been officially registered as an opera company now. So this was really happened very like spontaneously due to this situation, but now we are taking what we learned from this period and want it to be like our goal to do opera for new audiences in new ways under other production circumstances, and also working with this transmedia idea of expressing opera. So in the end we can maybe show our blog, which followed us all the way. So in the beginning, as you can see, we just scroll down it. It was the production team asked the audiences, the performers, to record some of their rehearsal sessions, take pictures of what inspired them, what they felt, and we used it to just document our rehearsal phase online. And we started to get a nice follower group, also for a lot of young people who didn't know anything about opera, but after a sudden they could see how we rehearse as singers, how we direct, what inspires us. And people who was never like faced with opera before could start to tap into this blog. Then we figured out, okay, maybe this blog can be a platform for how we actually express opera. So we started to present the characters from the opera within like this blog, if you stop here, this blog aesthetic. So we made like fake Tinder profile for Ditto and Aeneas. We did like character presentations. We recorded Aeneiden where we read it aloud so people could visit this blog to get the storyline. We recorded small pieces of music. We had interviews with the production and the artistic team. And later on, when we started to play live, we also always like in the beginning inform the people about the fact that they can visit the blog and then they can follow the libretto online or after. So if there was something they didn't understand, they could see it here. And then we try to keep this posting on this blog, so we like give this show live also after the live event had stopped. And as you can see, the aesthetic is very messy and very punk and very like the GIF, you know, so like this cyber young expression, which also informed the costumes, as you can see. Play with these very color-blocked costumes and wigs.
Maybe I can add like this way of working where we had to reflect ourselves on the current situation. We had to document our rehearsing, have these online rehearsals. It really gave us also purpose in a time where you didn't have a chance to perform at all. So rehearsing personal practice became a little heavy because you didn't know what you were practicing for. But this kind of gave us a lot personally also in this very odd time. And also it made you kind of, just self-reflect both on your own practice and why we do opera actually.
Yeah, also because we decided that we discussed a lot in the beginning, do we want to do this online opera? But it was so clear after 6 weeks of online rehearsals, preparations, material development and everything that we really needed this live opera. This online format cannot like
replace
is the word, yeah, replace the live moment. People were crying during our rehearsals because you couldn't feel each other, you couldn't hear each other, you couldn't touch. And it was, even though we couldn't touch when we met, it was such a relief just to be able to make live music together. But we also learned how you actually can come very far during this online phase, and you can collect a lot of things online. So we're really happy with our blog, and also getting a new way of thinking production, which we really think affects the product a lot. We're working as a collective, we're working transmedial, and we work with like democratizing the opera and coming out to new venues, new audiences.
Yes.
So that was our presentation.
Just to end with a few photos.
Yeah, we have
you can ask if you want.
That was so inspiring. Really, really good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we actually have this, I don't know how to schedule, but we have a live show here today in 1.5 hours. We have to go and set up. So I don't know if there is like any questions. We actually have to take them now. I don't know how it is with your plans, but we have to, unfortunately, have to.
Do you have to leave?
No. We can take the questions. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So sort of the plan was at least for us to have just a short chat now and see if anybody has any questions in the audience. But just to start with, really, really inspiring. Thank you so much. Is it okay for me to stop the presentation? Excellent. Yes, I'm feeling very inspired after this. This is very good. Thank you. If you guys want to ask any questions, please either raise your hands in the Zoom function or write into the chat, and I will hand you the mic, so to speak. While you are collecting your thoughts, then I'd like to ask you a couple of things. It's just all very impressive. You just seeing that rehearsal video was so much fun because there were so many confused faces. Yeah. You're all just like, what's going on? But you managed to get it through somehow, and it started to work, and that was really nice. Was there a lot of wall? Did you have to spend a lot of days to get through that membrane, so to speak, or was that instantaneous?
This was very, I think, like overall this process, we like developed, learned, produced totally simultaneously. So it was just like we just have to make it function. So I think our first rehearsal, I think it was maybe together. We were just, now we're having a Zoom meeting. Let's have a rehearsal. But it was like, okay, maybe we can't rehearse as we use here. Yeah. So then we started, okay, what can we do? Okay, we start to paint. Maybe if you paint that and you paint that. And then out of the sudden we actually developed this method, which really, it was for weeks. I was so exhausted every day because I sat like with Zoom, I followed an entire rehearsal schedule on Zoom and this way, like from 9 to 5 every day. And we actually really produced the whole staging that way. So when we see our opera today, it is really a lot of things from what we made back then. But it was very exhausting for the singers, also because I played the music from my computer, from a recording, and they muted themselves, everybody, because it was delayed. We started to try to sing together. That was totally impossible. Muted, and then I was like playing puppet masters, like, okay, now on this bar, go there, and
and it was definitely learning by doing and overcoming like technical frustration, because of course we had lagging and all of the usual stuff you have with technology. That was also during the rehearsals, and the internet not functioning for one, and you couldn't hear, and all these these small things that you had to like just take and be patient.
But then we recorded everything. That was like one of the good things. It was actually easy for us to record all our sessions, and all the recorded sessions we sent it to the two block artists. We have those two girls who took hand of the block. Then we sent it to them. Then they used this material in order to upload some interesting things on the blog, and then we also had that accessible to in order to recap instead of having like direct assistants writing down things.
Fantastic, thank you so much. We've got a couple of questions now. Lisa Hansson, I'm just going to read them out because we're a little bit over time, which is fine, but I'm going to read them out if you don't mind. Lisa Hansson asks, how was the reaction to the Tinder profiles?
That was a lot of fun, actually. I spoke to people who who've never been in touch with opera before, but they really found it very, very funny because it's so interesting. It also really, really made us. I think it's important that we're young people producing young opera. So for us, it's not like new to like being faced with Tinder, but putting it into like this, making everything you're living in a Cartago, figuring out ages of the characters. We really learned a lot about the characters when we put them into this contemporary setting, and I think it also opened to a lot of interesting talks, singers between, because they could really like understand their relationship better. And then of course the audiences, I think they found it really, really fun and just very, opera can sometimes be a bit alienating for people who don't know it, and it became very familiar, and it's very intimate somehow. Also, this blog opens up for an intimate phase because you see the rehearsal phase from the singers, you see the production. We are very like transparent about the process, but you also, because we are in our homes when we rehearse, but we also wanted this intimacy to reflect in the piece.
But it was actually interesting for the blog team, because singers are sometimes, especially classical singers, very careful of what they put out there. And they were always asking us to record us singing and during rehearsals, and they got very limited amount of recordings because we were always like, no, it's such bad sound quality. So you also had to
visual block.
But you also had to like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. They can also be, because that was kind of the point, that you don't have any makeup. You're just at home in your bathrobe or something. That it should be kind of raw and not
polished.
Polished products.
You said before, it was quite nice. You said daring to show imperfections. I think that is very important to draw out. That was to sort of allow the process just to flow. But I think we have to continue with a couple of more questions if you answer very briefly, because which makes me sad to say, because this is a very nice chat. Next one is from Birgit Holte Nielsen. She asks, how did you find each other?
And that is also very interesting because it actually started with like just me reaching out to colleagues and friends, and so we actually collected the team before we had the piece. So that's also why we were casting the collective, and then we put those guys into the piece. So it was really, everything was online, writing to people, and it was so fast that people said yes. That was also the reason that we actually didn't have any male singers. It was not the reason, but it was just because it was formed that way. So we didn't cast after a role. We were just like gathering and make everything fit that way.
But it's also just, it really happened very fast.
So it was 4 days, I think.
Yeah.
And then we had our first production meeting. Yeah. So again, because everything else around us was happening so fast. It was like I was in Berlin about to do another production, and then I heard the announcement that the Danish borders would close in 2 days. So I just had to rearrange everything, go back to Denmark, and then everything else was changed so fast. So reaching out online, and then we were just
a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, what we had in common was that we were young professional singers, and I reached out in my production and performance environment, and everybody had lost their jobs. So that was maybe.
I mean, there's no loss of people that want to do exciting things these days, I think. So that's great. Just the very last questions. And if you want to answer some more questions, then of course you can answer them just in the chat once the next presentation is going on. Maybe that'd be nice. But the last one, because I think that summarizes quite well for this theme of the talk. Tin asks, is there anything that you learned during this period that you will use further when restrictions have been removed?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think we actually discussed that today, because we are doing more shows now, and we're also talking about doing another show. So of course there's a lot of things we want to do less stressful, because we did so many things at one time, so we planned everything. But we also want to it's actually very, very interesting how effective we've been. Also, when we do production meetings now, we know, okay, we have this Zoom meeting. Zoom only lasts 45 minutes. In the free version, we have to go through all these things, and also just the ability to just say, yes, we try it out. And also that you can really, really go very, very far if you work with what you have around you, I would say. Also, daring to look at the material with new eyes was very inspiring for me, at least.
And I would say maybe this transmedial way of working, the documentation and the blog, for example, this new way of delivering. How do you say?
Express.
Now I'm in lack of words, but yeah, this online format I think will maybe stick with us.
Yeah, because it also informed the way we produce and think about opera. Because for me as an opera director, it's always a struggle how to produce modern young opera. But if we actually try to start to interact on the platform we are in our everyday life, of course opera can have this online life, of course, and it also puts a lot of humor into the piece, which sometimes lack a bit in the some productions, and it's this contrast is just so funny.
That's fantastic. Good final words, maybe. You guys should definitely check out the chat, because there's so many inspiring words happening towards you right now, so you should definitely check that out. But just thank you again for joining us, and I for one definitely feel very inspired after this. And
thank you for your time, and you're welcome to visit our blog as well.
Share those links with us in the chat.
Yeah,
that'd be great. And I'll be picturing you on your Danish bikes in Denmark, cycling with your props around for the show later.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Next up we have Voicings Collective from the UK. Are you there?
Hello, yes, we're here. So I'm Rebecca, and Rob and Michael are also going to be joining me in the presentation.
Welcome. So, I'll just hand the mic over to you.
Okay, great. I'm going to also share my screen because we have a presentation. So, yeah, I guess I will not be able to see, but let me know if anything is going awry. And thank you also so much for the invitation to be here. It's been great so far. So, okay. Right, can everyone see that okay?
That's looking very good, thank you.
Yeah, great, okay. Yeah, so thank you, and hello everyone, and we're here as the Voicings Collective. We created a digital docu-opera called Walk Out of Yourself over the UK period of lockdown. And I'm here with Rob Gilden, who is one of the co-creators and singers in the Voicings Collective, and Michael Betteridge, who is a composer and performer and like me, a co-founder of Voicings. Voicings was created in 2016. We've been making work together since then. And in April 2020, during the height of the UK COVID lockdown, the collective used our interdisciplinary devising process to capture the thoughts of our artists based across England. So from urban Manchester and seaside Brighton to rural Suffolk. And here are the credits of those who were involved in this particular piece, which I'll be showing you a short excerpt from in a minute. So as well as Michael and Rob and myself, we had Beatrice Hubble, who is an oboist, Robin Landy, another vocalist and co-creator, and Freya Wynne-Jones, who's our director and also a vocalist and the film editor. Nick Light and Jonas Rose Hoig came on as finishing editors, and we were really grateful for their help. So as part diary, part drama, Walk Out of Yourself features elements of verbatim technique collected on the daily walks that, as we experienced all of the anxiety, boredom, loneliness, and joy of the experience of isolation. And the piece captures our response to those first few weeks of quarantine, delving into the rituals and routine of pacing and retracing our steps and finding room to breathe. So the visual element was made up of footage that we filmed on our phones, along with a short animated section. And the film as a whole was edited by Freya, as I said, with finishing assistance from Nick, and the sound was designed and edited by Michael with assistance from Jonas, and the company as a whole contributed to the writing of the piece. So in addition to shaping the final text, I created the illustrations and the animated sequences. Walk Out of Yourself premiered on Opera Vision in August 2020 as part of a festival of short pandemic-inspired operas that were commissioned by Ella Marchmond and Opera Harmony. And it was a real joy to be part of that. Particularly, it was so interesting hearing about experiences in Denmark, because in the UK, we remained in lockdown for longer. The restrictions went on, and actually for some of us, like those of us in Manchester, we only had a pretty short period over the summer where we were not in that sort of lockdown. So for us, being part of something digitally was just incredibly valuable. So I'm now going to play just a little clip of the piece, hopefully.
So many people out today. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And do this.
So as you can probably see just from that short clip, our aesthetic was definitely informed by the Zoom experience of devising and rehearsing, which Michael is going to talk about a little bit in more detail in a minute. The Voicings Collective devises as an ensemble. So previously we've made work in which movement and a sense of physicality, as well as being together in person for quite long periods of time, have been really important. Those have been sort of vital elements of our creative practice. And so to create this piece, we had to sort of rethink our whole way of working together. But this spring, facing, like so many others, a really lengthy period with no creative work or opportunities, we found that the lockdown allowed and inspired and forced us almost to experiment and innovate. So we set a series of tasks primarily related to our government-sanctioned daily walk. And this was the one time of the day where we were allowed to leave the house unless we were going shopping or to medical appointments or to buy medicine. The tasks included creative writing, drawing, recording our thoughts as we were walking, and noting the sounds that we could hear outside. And during the devising sessions, we then worked with this accumulated material to both create text, music, and the visual aesthetic for our work. And the choreographed movements carried out in our homes were developed for the most part after the text and music was finished. And making Walk Out of Yourself was a deeply collaborative process. I think one of the things we experienced was the sort of joy of overcoming the physical distance that we felt and being able to work together. And this is from one of the sketch notes that I kept during our sort of rehearsal and devising process. So each of the sessions, I would try and capture some of what we were doing. And yeah, I think all of us were working with very newly and hastily acquired skills often. So I'm to hand over to Michael now, who will talk a bit more about that aspect of it.
Thanks, Rebecca. It's, yeah, in terms of kind of shaping this work, as Rebecca's already mentioned, we've spoken about kind of how working in a space together, for those of you who do devise, that is such a valuable way of working that was taken away from us quite quickly. So there was a lot of experimentation at the start. Once we'd had our material, once we had that text, which was constantly being edited and changed and adapted, we were still able to be really versatile and responsive to the needs of the group. But as has already been mentioned, Zoom is a challenging medium when working remotely and trying to create music together. So some of the kind of techniques and processes that I use as a composer in these settings, we try to transfer to Zoom. So often what I might do is set up a certain pitch set or a certain rhythm or a certain, I might take a bit of Rebecca's text and set a rhythm to it, and then we'd collectively as an ensemble devise that. But of course, with the latency and lag on Zoom, and I know there are ways around that with like Jamkazam and Jamulus and other software, we didn't use any of that. We're just doing it in isolation. I would be playing on the piano, everyone would be muted, and we'd be exploring, devising in that way. So not being able to make music together, literally hearing each other, but being able to have an improvise, work together, and then share and feedback. I think it's worth noting at this point, for me, and I can't speak for the whole group, well, I think we've had conversations about this, but a lot of the process was an opportunity, as Rebecca mentioned, to be creative, to connect with one another, to make music over Zoom, and actually just, it was a very cathartic experience, especially considering the very potent subject matter, which was so personal to us. And what we found over Zoom is, so for example, at one point I tried having a click track in my ear, playing some accompaniment and getting everyone to record on their mobile phones. It's worth saying that I am very, very, very low tech as an artist. Most of this was recorded on mobile phones, and Jonas did a phenomenal job of making it sound turbocharging it into something sounding beautiful. But we tried to be efficient. So when we were devising at home, I'd be playing away to a click track, get everyone to record it on phones. I mean, that wasn't very successful because of background noise, you know, the idea that we're just exploring and devising. But it was a really interesting way of generating material and being able to hear what we would sound like together if we were in the same space. So in terms of that devising process, what we did is we kind of we tried things out on Zoom and then set up tasks. And I would ask people to go away and improvise, explore, devise ideas. So what you can see on the screen now is Freya's experimentation with the phrase, every spring I feel like this at the end of the world. So she did like a 6-minute kind of, here's all the options that she was offering. And if we just flip forward, Rebecca, to the next slide, here's Robin's, some of Robin's offers as well. And you can see there's a tick next to one of them, but I don't think that's the one I eventually chose. And it was just an opportunity in a devising space. Of course, we would listen, we would see what worked together, we'd respond to each other and be very collaborative in that aural space. But that was not really, we weren't able to do that really here. So I had I had to make a lot of choices and then feed back to the group. So that patience that was mentioned earlier, that was a big part of the process. We had to be really patient in order to be collaborative, which is so important to us as a collective. Can you jump to the next slide, please, Rebecca? Thank you. So this is part of the score that worked as. And it's really, for me as a composer, what's been really fascinating is working in this way where people, so we all had different, our workloads were very, very different during this period. Robin was still teaching, some of us had other projects or other things we needed to do. So it was, in terms of making sure we were efficient with everyone's time and not asking too much of people, we had to be as, when we asked someone to record something and send it in, we worked with that rather than constantly reworking. So as a composer, it was a very layered process, which actually mimics quite a lot of what we do in the rehearsal room the devising room, but doing that on Audacity. For those of you who do sound engineering, I mean, I am totally lo-fi, as I said, but doing that on Audacity was really interesting because once the voices were in, I would be adding additional piano. Oboe came later, and all those elements were different to me as a composer, kind of layering at a later date and making choices later on in the process than I would do even in a devising room. So that was quite interesting. An interesting way of bringing this all together. So that's kind of our process of devising and rehearsing. And I wonder, Rob is going to, I think, talk now about how he found it as a performer, but also what's happened with the piece since.
Hello, everyone. I'm in Suffolk at the moment, in a corner of England which is very rural, and I'm a singer. But also on this, I was also a co-creator. So there was something very special to be involved in a very different way. But it was challenging, but really exciting. And I also helped me in my sense of having a connection to the piece. And I suppose I just want to talk about how the piece sort of happened a little bit in terms of it was commissioned by Opera Harmony. And then it was put out on Opera Vision. And I suppose that had been our primary focus when we were actually devising this piece together. But then actually, when the piece went out and I showed my mates, everyone was like, oh, this piece is really quite wonderful. And so we had to think, well, this piece can have a life in the future, but what is that life going to be? This is a piece which is 12 minutes long. It's a docu-opera, I suppose. It's slightly different in its form. Where's its home going to be? Where can we place this piece? So we started kind of searching out different ways of, or different places where we could possibly get this piece performed. And I tell you what was interesting about this whole process and being in isolation is that actually we're all, as you've heard already, we're in different parts of the country. So different areas of the country all feature in this film. So I suppose there's a connection to all these different areas over the United Kingdom. So what I felt I really wanted to do was to explore Suffolk and see where we could get this piece performed. So I put a couple of feelers out to people and I asked them whether they could actually perform it, whether we can actually get this piece performed. And so I asked someone at the Aldeburgh Arts Club, which is quite highbrow. It's quite a highbrow festival, and they were free, and they said yes, you could have the space, this little space, which you can see in this clip here. It's called the Lookout Tower. It's on the beach. It's very small, very intimate. It probably seats 15 people maximum. As you can see, it has a real rustic feel, but it's kind of perfect for our piece. But because we're in lockdown, we could only actually have 5 people watching it at one time. So we had it for a weekend in October. It was the wettest weekend I think we've ever had. And so it did look very hopeful, but in fact, we were a sellout. So 42 people came to watch it over the weekend and absolutely loved it. And we also managed to get other people to come in, sort of bundle in and wrap up warm and watch this film. And from that, we got a connection to another arts organisation just up the road in Halesworth, where there's this wonderful space called The Cut. And you can see it here. And we've managed to get a link with them, and particularly for this project here, which is they're doing a project called Float, which was a visual creative film devised by Bill Jackson, who's a photographer and filmmaker. And they thought that our piece would work really nicely against his film. Now, because of lockdown, obviously they did the actual initial showing, but unfortunately it had to be cancelled. But actually it's being postponed until December, so there's still options to see the film again. So that's really exciting. So I suppose what we're trying to do is just try and create connections to various organisations in the localities where we live in. And also there's also going to be a showing of this film at the Nave Theatre Company, which is up in Leeds. So that's the film, The Walk Out of Yourself. But I think Walk Out of Yourself also has a life in the future. I'm going to hand you back to Michael, who's going to talk to you about possibilities and how we can develop these ideas in the future.
Thank you, Rob. And Rob touched on something really interesting about when we started sharing this in person, socially distanced, of course, and kind of making sure that, you know, very small groups, very intimate but socially distanced kind of screenings, we were able to talk to people in person about the work, which was such a strange phenomenon because all our chats have been over phone or Zoom or messages. And a lot of the feedback was it really resonated with a lot of people. You know, being thrown back to that time in April where these daily walks were our only form of exercise, apart from other kind of things like shopping, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, and doctor's appointments. And there's a lot of kind of questions about what happens next. So where we're at now is we are looking to share this work, as Rob said, in locations that feature Manchester, Suffolk, Brighton. But we're also in the process of exploring what Walk Out Yourself episode 2 looks like, because for many of you will know that the UK has gone back into a lockdown here. So we have to be quite fast on our feet, I guess, because lockdown is supposedly going to end at the beginning of December. But we want to kind of expand and look further to see what the work can be in a different format. We're also exploring the notion of what walking means. And we've got a project in the pipeline where we're going to be creating more songs around the choral songs, ensemble songs, about what it means to go out and walk and be with your thoughts. So watch out for that in 2021. And I think, Rebecca, you're going to finish up for us, aren't you?
I am. So I've just posted in the chat a link to the film on Opera Vision. So if anyone is interested in watching the whole 12-minute piece, you can find the link there, and then also our Instagram handle. And yeah, we would obviously love to stay in touch with the people we're meeting here, and just to say thank you again for inviting us to join this symposium, and we're happy to answer any questions if there is still time. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, Michael and Rob, Voicings Collective. This was fantastic, and I definitely recommend to anybody here to watch their film. I remember watching it during lockdown, and it was really moving. I found it very moving and uplifting and relatable. So I definitely recommend that. Let's see if there are any questions in the chat already. Yes, Tanya Holland has a question. Did the project pay artists, or was this created through volunteer time? I'm interested in how we might keep our practice sustainable. So apologies if this sounds like an, I don't know how to pronounce that word, indelicate question. Sorry about that.
In here.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
It's a great question, and actually I think a really important question to ask as well. we didn't pay artists, but we were very, very clear and had a conversation about that from the start. And that was kind of our starting point for this. You know, can we collectively do this? Are we able to dedicate our time to this whilst we don't have work? Is that something we are able to do? I think there's also a really big understanding that when you ask people to volunteer their time, that at any point we can say, I'm sorry, I'm having a bad week, or I'm going to have to focus on this. So we're aware that we didn't make any demands apart from, let's just see what happens. And of course, there was the Opera Harmony deadline to finish it, but we were always of the understanding whatever we make will be the right thing to make, whatever we contribute is the right thing to contribute. And we were very honest with each other. My well-being wasn't very good at the end of May, so there was a period where I was not being able to do anything really apart from just look after myself. And we just took that in our stride as well. We went, well, that's the situation. But to be on the counterbalance to that, being able to do this project was a real kind of, lifeline for me at that point as well, to connect with people and make stuff. So and moving forward, we're asking big questions about, you know, if we are to do episode 2, we need to find some funding to make sure that happens in order to make us sustainable. So it is always a challenging topic to discuss, but really vital.
Excellent. Mayu asks, you had the amazing illustrations, but did you at any point think of engaging a costume or set designer remotely as well?
Shall I take this one? So, and also, so we did think about contacting a designer, and we do have a designer who we were hoping to work with in a project that would have happened in 2020, but didn't because of the pandemic. But I think that we ended up deciding to just keep it to the core sort of team that was already involved, and not try and bring anyone else on, mostly I think because of not having the funds to pay them, and feeling like those of us who had already established a relationship and had already worked together on our previous piece, which is called Hear Them Roar, knowing that we could really openly have those conversations about funding, but not really feeling like we could approach someone who hadn't worked with us before. In the past piece that Hear Them Roar, we did the set design and costume ourselves, but yeah, we are definitely hoping in the future to have that role within the company. And just to quickly answer Bill's question, yeah, Opera Harmony actually did, Opera Vision paid us, it amounted to about £26 per person. So, so yeah, there was a small fee that we were able to get from that. So, which we were obviously grateful for, but.
And to add, there were some prizes as well that Opera Vision put forward, which we were unsuccessful in. We missed out by 1 vote, apparently. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but we missed out. But these things happen, you know. But we went into it with our eyes open, I think, with that. And, you know, I personally relished the experience to create something and take risks that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
I think it's a very beautiful notion, this thing you said about connecting and this need of connecting with people when we are so isolated. And that's where the beauty of the piece comes from, for me at least. And I want to ask you, because this is very collaborative, like you said, and would you say that a collaborative process like this relies on you knowing each other really well professionally before you start?
I think so, yeah. I think, I think we can be really honest with each other. I find that anyway. I can be sometimes a bit grumpy, but I feel that my grumpiness is understood if I'm in that mode at one moment. And of course you want to create an environment for everyone that's very positive, but during these challenging times, I think working with people that you really understand where they're coming from, and also understand when things aren't quite working, that we can give each other space. For me, that makes it a joy, an absolute joy, I don't know what the others think. Maybe they're going to complain about my grumpiness.
Michael, you're intolerable. For me, what is interesting, what was interesting for me is actually in some ways we came to the collective in different ways. So I had worked with Freya before, so I actually didn't know Michael and Rebecca before. We worked together, and so actually, so I think we're sort of getting to know each other, aren't we, in some ways? But also I think what we do have is that we have a sort of a vision of how we want to create work together, which kind of drives that sort of personal connection, which is growing. So I think that's what was sort of key to sort of the gelling of the group. It was really, it was a really wonderfully explorative process. And I can't emphasize how much I loved it as a sort of a singer who generally just learns the music. I have been involved in sort of devising projects before, but nothing to the intensity of this, where I suppose, you know, it's like a little autobiography of our lives, but somehow all kind of webbed together in some way. And I suppose that creates a real connection to this piece. So I felt passionate that after we'd performed this piece and it'd gone out on Opera Vision, that actually there has to be a life for it. Not only because my friends were saying to me, Rob, this is really wonderful. Something has to happen with this piece. I was like, I know, but I don't quite know how. And that's what set the ball rolling in terms of searching out places to see where we could actually perform it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. This is really inspiring. And just to say, as last words, Lucy Shelfer says here in the, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, she says in the chat, it's always about connection, and quite right about that. Thank you so much, Voicings Collective. This was really, really good. And again, I recommend everybody to watch their piece on YouTube. I am aware that we are over time, but I find that completely fine because we do have a time buffer as the lunch break. And I'd rather eat into the lunch break rather than to cut people off early, because this is going really well and people are saying really interesting things. And but with further ado, let's introduce the next speaker, which is Nicola Mills from the UK. She's going to talk to us about opera for the people. Are you there, Nicola?
I am. Hello, everybody. I am currently based in the north of England because that's where I'm kind of stuck at the moment. But I've lived all around Europe working in opera houses and New York and things. But ever since 2016, I've been doing opera for the people because I combine the fact that I'm from a very working class background in the north of England. Somebody gave me singing lessons for free. And I love connecting with people. That is what I do. It's like I go out, I'm on the front line and I'm, you know, making sure that people come together. And I haven't stopped in lockdown. And I've broken rules. And to be truthful, I don't really care because it's about bringing people together and not being isolated. And I know music is so powerful to do that. So my idea wasn't anything that came, I didn't sit and think, okay, what am I going to do now? It happened organically, which is the way I like to do things. Because I've been busking for quite a while, I gave up a full-time job in an opera house to go and sing on the streets for people. Somebody got in touch and said, my mum heard you 2 years ago. Could you send her a CD? She's really struggling in lockdown. And I said, yes, no worries. If you want, I will go and sing her some songs on her doorstep as well. So she said, oh yeah, she would love that. And that's what I did. I turned up. I had no idea how it would go down. I was nervous. I put a CD on the doorstep, stepped back, knocked on the door and started singing for her. And all the neighbours came out and I just carried on for about 20 minutes. And the day after, I mean, all I do is about connecting people. All I care about in the music business is bringing joy and uplifting people and connecting with people and creating real interactions. I don't care about anything else. And being the best that I can be for people as well. So I just thought, okay, I'm living in a market town. I'll just put a post on Facebook saying this is what I can do. I can sing for people. Can I help anybody? I know people are struggling. I know they're feeling isolated. You know, let's get people outdoors a little bit. And it just went from there, and people just kept asking me to sing. And I think I've done about 70 concerts so far, and I've got more in the diary. I'm now preparing Christmas songs, and it's like, come on, sing along, join in. We need it. We need to be uplifted. We need to be inspired. You know, I do not believe in too much self-isolation. It's not right. We need people and we need community. And that's what I've been doing. And I've had so much kindness given back to me. It's win-win. It's certainly not me going helping everybody else. It's everybody else helping me at the same time. I've had people telling me that it's the nicest thing that's ever happened. I feel humbled to have done what I've done. I have sang for people who've been terminally ill, who have now passed on. I've 3 people who have now passed on. And I just feel like, wow, what a beautiful, privileged position I've been put in to help those people. The BBC actually filmed me as well, doing one concert, and it was put on the regional news in Yorkshire. So I've kind of, you know, my heart has soared from all this. And, you know, I don't know where it's going to go. I'm going with the flow. As long as I'm singing for people, I'm happy. I love all the little interactions, all the people that I get to meet. Tomorrow I'm raising money for an organisation called Music for the Many, who give free music lessons to children in schools, and they're trying to raise money to carry that on. And I was given free music lessons, so there's no way my family could have afforded it. So what I've done is I've actually got a film, if I can work out how to do this. All the 70 concerts, I got photos and videos and what have you. And I got a filmmaker to put a film together. It's 3 minutes long, just over 3 minutes. I'm going to try and show that for everybody, so you can kind of just see who I am and what I'm about. Right, let me have a go. Like I said, I've never done this before, so is that you? Is that showing anything now or not?
No, not yet.
Right, so I've clicked on desktop 1, share. Right, now it will do it, will it?
Yes.
Right, let me just put it on full screen. So I've just did every theatre is every street is a theatre in lockdown.
Now, with all the theatres closed, opera lovers are having a dull time of it at the moment.
Because obviously we can't have any live events in venues.
But one woman from Todmorden, well, she's on a mission to take opera onto the streets.
Thought, right, that's it. I'm not going to not sing.
Nicola Mills has been performing impromptu concerts outside during lockdown.
No, people are struggling, finding it hard. They're stuck indoors.
Her aim, to bring opera to the people.
And that's led to 61 concerts.
What a treat.
This is right from the start being about helping people. Somebody got in touch with me. She told me that her mum was really finding it hard in lockdown, and she said, would I send a CD to her mum? So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll take it myself and I'll sing a few songs on her doorstep as well. So I rocked up and sang, put the CD on the doorstep and stepped back, and then the whole street came out, which shocked me because I didn't know how it was going to go down. I thought, am I going to look like a flipping idiot here? And I didn't. Everybody's out, so I'm like, yes, get in. I love it when people start talking to each other, when they start connecting with each other. You start to see real community. I've had people saying, oh, I didn't know my neighbours, but now we chat. I know how much live music matters to people. It's not right that all people have been stuck indoors. And what's been good is they don't have to come to me. So it's kind of changed everything. It really is. We're doing something together. We need it for our mental health. We need to come together. I've been put in some beautiful situations these last few months to really make a difference to people. And I feel humbled and totally privileged that I can help and I can give something to them. You know, I've been shown so much love and kindness from people, so much support and encouragement. It's really helped me to open myself up. It's a win-win thing. So if there is anybody who wants me to go and sing for somebody, please get in touch. I'm so happy to help. You let your neighbours know, get them to bring a chair out, make a theatre wherever I go. That's what I've been doing, and I've absolutely loved it. I've loved it. Yay! Have a cheer, everyone. Yay! Even you that I kept forgetting. Someone described me as Mary Poppins the other day. Said, oh, she's like Mary Poppins, huh? Lovely to see you all out today. The honeybees have fetched the nectar from the flowers to the comb, never tired of ever buzzing to and fro. And though they take a little nip from every flower that they sip, and the hens, yes, the banter is really important. Right, who's going to get up and dance? Come on, you've all had a drink now. You've got no excuses. Oh, sorry, you don't want that or whatever that is. I don't know what that is. Have I stopped sharing now? Oh, brilliant, right, brilliant. So, oh, sorry, I'm just going to turn this off now. That's it. Let me find you all again. Right, so that's basically what I've been doing. I don't want to do things online. It's not who I am. I've done an odd thing. I've done like one concert. It's not the same. You know, you're just singing a song and then you've got no idea how it's going down, what it sounds like, how it's coming across. You know, you don't have the claps. It's just, to me, it's just not right. So if I can find a way to make it work, that I go and I still have direct contact with people, I will sing anywhere. I don't care. If it's going to bring some joy to somebody, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to carry on. And if that means that I break some of the rules, that means I break some of the rules, because I follow my heart. And if it feels morally right to do this for people, then I will do it. And I don't care, really. I've always been a bit of a rebel, but I call myself a good rebel. So yes, I'm going to carry on. I think on a mental side, I'm kind of grieving a little bit all the things that I lost in this. You know, I was going back to New York. I'd written a tribute to Julie Andrews that was in theatres around the UK, and you know, I did 4 shows. It was called A Spoonful of Julie, and the rest got cancelled. I was due to sing for Disney. You know, I used to be like a serious opera singer, and I've become much more crossover, and it really is all about helping people and bringing joy to people, and that just brings joy to my heart. So it really, really is win-win. I get to share my light, I get to shine for others and share the gift that I've been given in this lifetime, and it's there to help. So you know, I'm just kind of going with the flow, seeing what happens. I've applied for some funding to develop the idea further. There's a tour manager on board who you know, wants to link it with some communities. And you know, I'm from very rough kind of background myself, so I know how to connect with people from all walks of life, and it's what I'm good at, because I can chat to people. I'm not really sure if there's anything else I want to say. I have a Facebook page, which is Nicola Mills Opera for the People. I'm just all about the people. It's my way of showing love to them. And I write a blog, which I've been writing for nearly 3 years, called A Soprano, a Suitcase and a Rucksack, because I literally got rid of all my things at the beginning of 2018 and went on the road as a soprano, a suitcase and a rucksack. And it's taken me to so many different places, and it's been a real journey, and I've documented that. So yeah, that is my story. I love what I do, and I'm just going to carry on, and that's it really. And I'm looking forward to Christmas concerts that I can do for people. We all like a little bit of Christmas, and it's not going to happen in the way we want this year. So I can bring some live music to them, get some mince pies, mulled wine going. People can do what they need to do, stay in their own garden, whatever. You know, I trust that they will take their own responsibility for themselves. I'm going to do a buy me a beer campaign as well. Somebody told me about it, my landlady. It's buy me a coffee, and people donate. I think I split it at £3, but because I don't like coffee and I lived in Belgium and I love Belgian beer, I put mine as buy me a beer. And I'm going to do an Advent Christmas, or one Christmas song online as an Advent calendar every day, and also offer like personalised Christmas songs and Christmas messages to people, which I will do online. And that's me. You don't know. I'm just trying to think out of the box, find new ideas. Sometimes I can be walking along and an idea will just suddenly come, and I think, yeah, I'm doing that. But when I tend to sit down and try and think of ideas, they don't come. I'm living from my gut, I'm living from my intuition, and I'm just following my heart. And that's me. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening and sharing your stories as well. It's really, really positive and inspiring. Like you said, there's just too much negativity going on. It's not the world I live in. I think, right, what can I do to bring a bit of positivity? And we're so lucky as musicians. We are so lucky that our job is to uplift and inspire other people. So thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody else has to offer today, and, you know, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. It was so inspiring. And I don't know if there are some questions, but I have a question for you, because now we know each other. Since a few years, we got to know each other in the Netherlands.
Yes.
What is it, 10 years ago now?
Yeah.
And it's been really amazing to follow where you have gone since there. We were studying in the conservatory, and then you were working at a very high level, and you left everything to do this project that is for me to think about, to do this on your own, to do this and take the risk of leaving your secure job and follow your heart. That's something that was that something that you just needed to do? Were you afraid? Or did it just happen naturally? Now, I know the answer, but maybe not all the others. So
it's been shit scary at times. I have literally been like terrified many times. I think I've faced every fear imaginable. And that's why when this happened, I thought, I'm not scared at all. Like, it's never entered my head to be scared about what's going on. It was more like, well, I've done loads of being scared about things, so what can I do to help people? But, you know, like, I gave everything up and just went to live in New York and didn't know anybody, and traveled around, didn't know where my next roof over my head would be. And literally following my heart and going against the grain and not doing what, you know, not following the general pattern, but getting so much pleasure out of singing for people. And, you know, the messages I've had back, it's just, if my life ended now, I can literally say I've done what I can to help people, and they've helped me though. It's just so beautiful, honestly. It makes me smile on the inside. It's so linked to my heart and my soul, and you know, that's all I care about. And once you're on the path, you're on the path, and that's it really. So, and I'm on the path.
Yeah, and it's so clear that, like, what you put out there, it just comes comes back in some way. But also, what is interesting, because most of us have been trying to adjust to the situation, but you are just doing your normal thing.
Yeah,
you don't adjust, you just keep on going.
I know.
Was, I think different for most of us to.
Yeah. It's been, you know, it's been challenging. I do feel it's getting harder and harder to do what I do, and I think, like, how can singing a song be seen as so bad? Yeah. But I'm kind of a bit of a warrior. I'm a spiritual warrior. So, like I say, if I feel from my heart that it's good for people, I will find a way to make it work. Simple as that. And I'm interested, there's a director who's waiting to work with me if I can get some funding. I'm kind of interested to see what more I can do with it. And alongside the Julie Andrews thing, obviously that's on the back burner at the moment. But I don't know. I mean, I'm enjoying myself. So that's it, really.
There's a question from Tanya Holland from Fat Lady Opera. Nicola, what do you think would be the most helpful thing for you to continue to do what you do?
People to ask me to sing. That's it. That's it. I'll go anywhere. I bought myself a little banger of a car. You know, I didn't have a car for quite a while because I was, you know, not living in the UK so often. And so I can go anywhere, really. So if all I need is people to host it, and I just say to them, right, you tell your neighbours, you tell me what time, I'll come, you know, sing, let's see what we can do together. and I'll have a whip round at the end and take donations. And that's how it's worked. And it's been great to cut out the money and to be kind of not saying this is a business transaction. Mm-hmm. I don't want to live in business transactions. I want to live in heart transactions. And if I said to someone, right, the fee is what, 200 quid or whatever, that cuts out a lot of people. They then go, oh no, this is too much. But if I let people do it collectively and do it in the way that works for them, and everyone donates in the way that they want and how much they want, and if they can't, I don't care. It comes back to me more than I ever needed. And like I said, someone even bought me a bed. They took me to a bed shop because I'd helped the community so much. And I've had flowers and so many flowers, so many gifts, so many words of kindness that I don't really want to go back to like financial transactions to be like the starting point for singing for people. I want it to be accessible for everybody. That's so important to me.
Okay, fantastic. So now, Helgi, thank you, Nicola. This has been amazing. There was one last question, but we are a bit tight on time. So the question is now, if we would, Helgi, are you there? Are we going straight to Birgitte, or how do people find about, wait.
I think if people don't mind, if we go now into Birgitte's talk and then take a short break and then for 12:30 start again after the break. So we stick to the 12:30 timing of sort of starting again, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you want me to just quickly answer Lucy's question?
Sure, yeah.
So, social did it prevent scientific necessity. See, I'm on the other side of it. I don't think it is. So I'm kind of going the other route. I'm going from my heart. So yeah, that's it really. I just, because I do it outside, I keep my distance from people and I leave it up to them to take responsibility for themselves and their group and their safety, and we kind of don't go on and on and on about COVID. So that's what I do. Obviously that doesn't work for everybody, but that's how I do it. Thank you, everyone.
So Helgi, will you introduce Birgitte? I just wanted to remind you that I have created a Facebook group where we can share our links. So I will also share that with you in the chat again. So it would be nice also to keep in contact after the symposium so we can easily find all the information. Helgi, would you?
Yeah, I mean, nothing else to say, but thank you, Nicola. This was extremely
inspiring. It was
inspiring.
very inspiring. So happy to have heard you. Thank you.
The next up is Birgitte Holt Nielsen. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Welcome.
Thank you. Very nice to be invited here, and I have a number of friends around I can see. So very good to see you from over there, far away. I don't have a presentation with a nice share screen, so you just have to look at my face, and I will make it quite short. What I'm going to tell about is a bit in a different line, because I primarily work with opera and music theatre for children. I've until recently been working at the Jyske Opera, Danish National Opera, which is Denmark's national touring company, which has made some things easier in many ways, at least if we talk about the financial part of things, because of course I have had my salary all the time. So now I've moved into an independent company and it's freelancing. So this will be another thing with whatever's going to happen with the pandemic on a further notice. But right, this what I want to tell about was the way that I think it taps into many of the other things that we've talked and heard about, for artists, I think we have to use our creativity to survive a situation like the lockdown and all the troubles and the things. So in a very short time, our creativity is sort of rising to make us carry on. And for me, it was very practical in a way, because we had to cancel a lot of workshops for kindergartens where they were supposed to come to our production house and do workshops with me and and a musician. So I thought it was really a pity for the kids that once they returned to the kindergartens, which was in May, mid-May in Denmark, or yeah, I think it was in the middle of May, that they should have nothing because it was not allowed to take them inside. So I developed a concept where we did, it's called Musik I Luften, music on the open air. And we, instead of them coming to us, we went to them. And we could be in the playground, but also what we really liked for them to do, that was actually to find somewhere outside, if they had a wood or somewhere nice outside location where we could be with the kids. And then we made this like a sort of a visit of going to it was called the Country of Sound. And it was me together with the two musicians. I was the singer, and there was the cello and then percussion. And we made the story about, it was sort of traveling around to three different stations. And the first one was my station. So we started, we had made a small song that they would be singing, and also to warm up the voice and the body and so on. Those were for children for 4 to 6 years, so they were quite small. And then 10 minutes with me, and then we sent them on to the next station, and then they were going to create music on wood and with small stones that they were given. That was the passport that they were given by me. I was the one taking care of the border, so they had to get through the border and then get a small stone. That was the passport, and then they brought it on to the next station to show that they were allowed to be in this country of sound. And then they created music with sort of stomp, you would say, but on the natural things. And then they were sent on, and then the last station, that was where Johanna, she's a cellist, she was sitting and playing on the cello, performing on the cello in the middle of the forest or wherever we were. And then they were dancing and singing, and we used the same song all the time and put a new layer every time. And it actually worked quite well. We started out with groups that were only allowed to be 5 together. So we had, I think, six groups going on. So we had to do exactly the same thing 6 times in a row, which is very far from my natural disposition. but it actually worked, because every time for them, they only did the things 3 times. So it was about half an hour or 40 minutes for each group. But we were going on for a long time, especially for the cellist, who was sitting in one of the places. She was sitting far out, very far away, and waiting for somebody to come to her, sitting with her cello while people were walking past and looking at her and, airing their dogs and things like that. It was quite entertaining in many ways. And then gradually, as things got easier, they were allowed to be more than 5 kids in a group, so we could have a bit more time, and then not do it so many times at the same time. So that was just a small example of how to create other kinds of concepts due to the situation. And I think what I learned very much, that was actually the thing, that being in open air, we don't usually do so much classical music in the open air, because of course, obviously it's difficult to create acoustics and things like that. But what we gain for the kids, for them to be outside, they are much more, there's much less stress, and for them it's sort of, there's more space for them to be happy and to move around, and you don't have to sort of have the adults or the teachers sort of, lowering their energy and so on. So it's actually very, very good for them. So I think this is actually something I will take into my new company, Figaro's, and work more with things in open air. And right now I am also the thing about the cross art form I would like to work more with. So I am actually right now thinking about developing a concept for families. In Denmark right now, restrictions are so we're only allowed to be 10 people together, but we don't have as strict restrictions because the situation is not yet so grave as in spring. So we don't have lockdown, and we can have a group of 10, for instance, and then to have the same kind of idea of moving around in stations, but maybe there are some possibilities, and that's something to do with economy, of some pools of money that you can actually get from the Arts Council, but I think it's a very short term, so it's sort of you have to do something during winter, and it's a bit difficult with outside things in Danish winter. But I'm thinking about doing something in January. I want to see if we could get some different kinds of things, people to work together, and maybe include the churches, because I haven't been doing stomp in churches, doing the creation as stomp. And I think maybe we will see if we can get some churches to open to have this kind of thing. So we have one station which is the church, and another station which is some kind of community house, and then something outside. And it should be about bringing lights in the darkness or something in January. I'm not. This is just ideas. It's the idea plan, but it's inspired from from experience that we wouldn't have had if it hadn't been for the pandemic. And I mean, it's not as if I think it would be a pity not to have had the pandemic, because it's terrible in so many ways, in all ways. But the whole thing about remembering the creative way of surviving as artists, but also for people anyway. And as I'm agree so much with Nicolai about the things that it's all about bringing people together and helping each other by being together, and try to be together with whatever means are possible, if it's online or offline or however. I mean, that's a matter of choice and the possibilities. But I think the connection is, I totally agree about what's been said earlier, that the connection is everything. So that was just my little story.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Birgitte. We have a couple of questions already in the chat, which is great. One from Sam Glaser, who says, I think what you say about the link between space and the children's energy is really interesting. Did working outside make any difference to the focus on what was happening? Were they more easily distracted?
No, actually, I was very surprised that they weren't. I think they were actually more focused. And maybe that was because I think this has very much to do with when you have a group of 5 or 6 and one adult doing something together with them, then it's very easy for them to focus, because there's not a lot of different things that they have to focus on, and they are not distracted by the other kids. But we did have some, people walking dogs, dogs are very interesting to small children, but then we just sort of included them, and then we made in the warm-up, then we did sounds of dogs barking, which was very intimidating for the dogs, but we had fun. And then that meant also that the people walking the dogs, that they moved away quite quickly. And so we got rid of the distraction again. But I actually think I was surprised that it was so easy actually to keep them connected, I think.
Yeah, I guess you have to have an event like this in quite an open forum to be able to react to these.
Yeah, you have to be able to. I mean, you have to improvise all the time. Of course you will. But we made the skeleton of what was going on, and we were working with quite few different things in order for it not to be too complex. So the content was much less complex than what we would usually do. But then there were so many other things that we could do.
Great. Michael asks, did the change of audience size impact on the young people's experience? Was the more intimate with a smaller audience size performance better or just different?
Yeah, I think I think I more or less answered it. Well, it did impact the experience, I'm sure, because they felt that that we could see them every single one. But usually, because this is workshop and not a show, we usually have only 25 at most. But that's actually quite a lot to have in a room. So we use more narrative usually to keep them focused, and that was not so important here. We had the story of we are in this kind of country, a new country that's exactly here where we live, but it's another kind of country because it's the country of the sound. But we didn't need to have a story the same way that we would usually do. So maybe that was actually because of the small group, but also because of the physical things going on.
Do you plan to continue with these events in the future?
Yes, I do. It's also because now, since I've moved towards into my new work, and we live in a village, my husband and I, we have the company together. Oh, it's his company. I'm taking over. No, don't tell him I'm moving into it. And we live in a village, and I would very much like to look into more. When we moved here 20 years ago, when our kids were small, nothing was ever going on. If you could talk about any kind of, professional artistic things, that was only in the towns, the small towns in this municipality, but it's not in this area, it's not in the villages. So I would very much like to use some of these ideas in the villages and see if we can get the families to come. Because of course we can do things for kindergartens and schools and so on, but we don't see the families. It's actually the same when I've been doing projects in some of the what you call it, challenged, what is it that you call it in English, when we're not allowed to say ghetto? Underprivileged areas, that's what we call it. Yes. And that's the same when we see the children, but we never see the families or the parents. And actually that's exactly the same in the villages, more or less, which is interesting. It's all about small societies, small communities. So yes, I will keep on using some of these experiences, I'm sure.
Excellent. That's inspiring. Is there any recording of an event this far, or do you plan to record them in the future?
Yeah, well, actually, there's a lot of problems with this, GDPR and kids, and so it's actually quite difficult. If we're going to record it, we have to make some kind of, arranged natural setting, because we're not allowed to use films with the kids.
Of course.
Just so and I haven't got around to to fix this kind of
We'll just have to come around and attend it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Please do. Whenever it's possible. Yeah. I was supposed to go to Iceland. That would have been, then could have done it there.
Yes, of course. Hopefully next
We'll do that when the world opens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sooner or later.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Birgitte.
Okay.
Now I think it's time for a little break. We would, according to plan, have the break until 12:30, but maybe, Guja, what do you say?
I propose that we start at 20 to 1, because it's 20 past 12 now, so we all get 20 minutes break to have some refreshments or whatever. And I'm going to encourage also people that are participating but not presenting, if they want to present themselves in our Facebook group and tell us about themselves a little bit. It would be nice, so we get to know each other, and hopefully this is I'm hoping that with this symposium we start like a network of contacts of like-minded people, so of the Facebook group, so we can continue to share. But coffee, I think that's a good idea now. It's been really inspiring. Thank you. Hopefully see you all in 20 minutes.
Yes, I think I'll just leave the Zoom session open, but we'll just mute ourselves and stop video and etc. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, it's time, I think, for our second half of today's event. Guya, do you want to say a couple of words before we hand over the mic?
Yes, just welcome back. It was a short pause, but yeah, I hope you're all as inspired as I am, and I'm looking forward to hearing the next presentations. We're starting with, well, Helgi, you'll maybe take care of presenting the next presentations, but I'm just so thrilled to get the chance to listen to this and meet you all. And I just encourage you to join the Facebook group so we can continue to get to know more about each other and the projects and what can be done in COVID. And then when COVID is done, yeah, maybe we can plan a symposium somewhere in Reykjavík, for example, in real life at some point. So yes, Helgi, back over to you.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful day this far and no reason to stop now. So next up is Bill Banks-Jones from the Tet Festival in London.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you so much for organising this. It's been an amazing thing so far, and I really love the way you're keeping so positive. So far, we've more or less heard about different people talking about one show, and I'm slightly overwhelmed because I'm talking about an awful lot. And in fact, many of you here might have been or were in this year's Tet the Opera Festival, or have been in the past. To introduce the company, I set it up. I'm a director just over 20 years ago to direct shows, like everybody sets up companies. They want to do what they want to do. And after about 10 years, it felt like a sort of social responsibility to use the infrastructure I had built to help other people make shows. We were helped a lot when we were very new by things that stopped existing, like BAC Opera, English National Opera Studio, Bridewell Theatre. So I wanted to give a bit of that back because there was nowhere to go in the mid-2000s that would really support you making small new operas, which is what we do. And so Tet the Opera Festival was born and has grown and grown. I think the biggest was 2015, where we had 51 shows or something. This year looked to be heading towards a similar size. And the story is one of response to change, really, because I was quite pleased by about December. I had a pretty good idea of what shows were going to be in the festival, and then COVID hit. My first knee-jerk reaction to that was very, very early on. This is the tete-a-tete gesture towards art in lockdown. I'll paste it into the chat, where I just started tweeting. You can see my terrible one, actually. Tweeting postings with the hashtag Corona Chorus, and that started on the 13th of March. I think you should all try and find Helena Dix's singing toilet roll. I think it was an international phenomenon, the panic buying of toilet rolls. Anyway, she made a very good response. These were quick, trashy art in isolation things people made with their mobile phones. There was another marvelous one of a mum with her kids trying to jump on her while she was trying to play the piano and sing an aria. Anyway, they're really fun if you've got some time to spare. But after that, 10 days later, we were put into lockdown and we went, what the hell happened? What the hell do we do now? And after about a month of uncertainty, I made a manifesto, which was my way of trying to get my head and everybody else's through to a future, really, through to what we could do, to give us somewhere to aim for, so that we weren't going, things are horrible now and we need to make stuff on our own because we can't do it together. I thought, why don't we pretend that we can do it together and work towards that, and share the process as much as possible, and maybe in the end we will be able to do that anyway, which sure enough is what happened. The story of getting there is really, of course, long and complicated because it's 6 months and it involves so many people. I was really pleased to see Dido and Aeneas began in a very similar way with a manifesto saying this is what we want to do, and that was really interesting to me. I didn't know that until the presentation just now. And also seeing the blog, I think we didn't do as well at sharing our processes, but you can, as somebody managing an umbrella rather than a show, you can only encourage, you can't force people to do that. Anyway, it's a really interesting model to take back and share with everybody. So my manifesto said more than anything that theatre or opera is defined as the art form where the artist affects the audience and the audience affect the artist in real time. And that's something like everybody, actually, apart from Voicings Collective, you were saying yourselves that you had to get into your performances, whatever they were. And so I set out a plan where we would aim for that. I was quite strategic because it seemed very obvious to me what indeed did happen, which is that we would lock down for a few months. By the end of the summer, with everybody out of doors, things would be better and we would be able to get into theatres for a short while before winter starts, schools come back, students go to university, and everybody starts spreading this virus again and shutting us down, which has indeed happened in the UK. So luckily, the dates for our festival were towards the end of the summer anyway, and it felt like it was really worth going for it. To make this happen was a real white knuckle ride, as those of you involved will know. I mean, Helgi, you were one for a while until it just got too difficult to bring a show from Iceland to London. It was just too much, and two big things I think changed with Tête-à-Tête the Opera Festival this year. And one was that artists came together as never before. There was something, you know, when you said, let's have positive stories, we have got really positive stories. And what we found was particularly Zooms meant that we could talk to each other, and we could talk to each other even though we had people in Chicago and Madrid and Ukraine and God knows where, all over the place. Nevertheless, we could come together. And what was also really thrilling about that is what we came together to do, that the artists began to contribute to the thinking of the festival in a way we'd never managed before, because I don't think you could call people into meetings to have the kind of conversations that we do. So every Tuesday we talk about whatever artists wanted to, and by and large every Wednesday I would set a challenge and I'd say, well, how much should we charge for tickets? And you'd have an amazing conversation where people would go into breakout groups and go, well, we could auction them, or we could charge £2,000 for one ticket and £1 for the rest, or, you know, lots and lots of brilliant ideas. And an awful lot of the methodology and structure of the festival happened in that way. The other thing that I encourage people to do, I mean, it's a lot for people to do because it's rather like the Edinburgh Fringe, the structure of Tête-à-Tête, but with a bit more support. People are making their own shows, and so they take on a lot of the work. We help as much as possible, and certainly did this year. But what am I trying to say? That I put forward and pushed for all the way through, but harder and harder as it got closer, a 3-level plan. So encourage people to go, we're aiming for the live show. This is what we'll do if we can do it live. On the other hand, if we can't come together with a live audience, we will do this. So we might come together and film it, or we might take it out of doors on a boat was one idea. It never happened in the end, but it was another idea. Or worst case scenario, which thankfully we didn't get anywhere near, how will we make our show if we do it at home? But what the most profound thinking I think that happened in the Zooms that we did together was to get everybody to think, what do I really care about? What am I really trying to make in my performance? What do I really want to get across in my production? Because some of them, you know, like one opera had 26 people in it, and they were all from Birmingham, so quite a long way from London. Well, they were all Chinese actually, but in Birmingham. And that was just never going to happen. So everybody had to, as it slowly came into focus, everybody had to rethink their plans on the basis of what they cared about. What can I do if I only have 1 or 2 people in a theatre? What can I do if everybody has to be 3 meters apart? Just park that side of the story for a little moment, because the other half of the story, which came out of the Zooms, was I was determined to make theatres open. So these Zooms were very empowering. I don't want to get too technical and boring with you, but in one week early on in discussion, one of the artists said, well, there's this thing called the Cultural Recovery Board in Britain, which is about bringing arts back. And it's lots of theatres and lots of ballet companies and things, but only one opera company, which is the Royal Opera. So how are they representing us? How are they helping us to come back? So I wrote to them and said, we've had a Zoom. I've got, you know, these 30 artists want to know how you're going to represent us. And they wrote back and said, this isn't to do with you or with campaigning. This is about how we return to performance, the protocols for performing indoors. And so I took that back to the artist Zoom and got this fantastic response, which was, they've no idea what we do. They've no idea what it is to be in a small theatre spitting in the face of the front row as you sing, that we need to take this on ourselves. So I then went on a mission, which, to cut a long story short, ended up with me working with the government to trial the reopening of theatre with opera in a small space. So in July, just as things were beginning to relax, our government organised 10 different pilot performances. Mostly, actually, these were music, 3 with the London Symphony Orchestra. I mean, they're a marvellous, crazy mixture of things. There were only 2 theatres. One was Andrew Lloyd Webber in the Palladium doing a concert with Beverley Knight, and the other was Tête-à-Tête in the Cockpit Theatre doing a one-woman show. We had 4 days to pull together with Eloise Werner, bless her, who you can watch on our website. It was a really good show, but also an electric atmosphere, because nobody in Britain had performed indoors since March. It was a really thrilling, powerful moment. It was also very boring and very tiresome, because I don't think anybody else has really talked about this yet, about what it's like to perform indoors in a COVID compliant way with a paying audience. But it involved a huge amount of measurements and research, actually, as well. We worked a bit with this guy, Declan Costello, who was looking at aerosol particles and droplets and what happens when you sing and whether that spreads COVID. It gave us a very restrictive framework, because the singers and brass and wind players had to be 3 meters apart at all times in a space that was only really 6 meters square. So there wasn't a lot you could do in terms of movement. And also, I mean, it was a huge job just going through the government regulations all the time, which were changing every day, and working with them as well to try and make them better. That was not an easy job. Anyway, we did manage it, and we had a theatre that really wanted to do this as well, which was essential. And so that happened, and it happened very happily. The Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport, the government department that deal with this, were very happy with what we did. And I kind of feel quite strongly it's really important that any of us in what we do behave as safely as we can, because A, you don't want to start causing the deaths of people by making some event where COVID spreads, and B, nor do you want to stop the reopening of performance because performance is blamed for illness. At the moment, internationally, theatres have a very good record for not spreading COVID, and that is because we have made very, very controlled environments where people don't get too close together and don't do irresponsible things. Long may it stay that way. Anyway, our process carried on. We talked and talked and talked and talked, and in the end we had 3 weeks in order to put the live shows on. So a certain number of shows just went, okay, this is too much, I'm just going to park this till next year. A certain number went, well, we'd like to make a film. Most of those, but not all, happened in the theatre, and 18 shows actually happened live in the theatre with a paying audience. So it's quite a lot of, like, I look back on this and go, well, let me show you an infographic. I don't know if I can share screen. Actually, no, let's not do that. I'll just pop it into the chat. Here's a thing that shows you what we did do. Here we go. Oh dear, I'm on a new computer, so I'm a bit stupid, I'm afraid. But it's quite worth looking at this because you get a lot of numbers and information and things like that. So in the end, 80 people signed the manifesto. We did a pilot coming back for performance in September. We did 18 live shows. There were 31 new operas altogether. That's because 13 of them were online only in the end. 332 opera makers, 107 actually went in the theatre in person, tiny live audience in the theatre, 435. And I think another reason what I did was possible is because Tete-a-Tete really exists to develop artists more than anything else. Yes, to connect artists with audience, but the emphasis is on making new opera, giving opportunities, that kind of stuff. So that's how we pay for it. We didn't pay to pay for every single person, but I did manage this year. Just before we went on, we went, right, great, we can go ahead, but we were £15,000 short of being able to pay for it, which was a nightmare. So I contacted 24 very rich people or a trust foundation, and actually they gave us the money that we needed within 3 days. It was brilliant. It was a really, really, really marvelous thing. And not only that, but one foundation, because I'd already raised the money from the individuals, and then the foundation said, yes, we want to be part of this and rush an application through. It meant that we could also give each company about £500 towards the work they were making. So that was a lovely, lovely thing. We also changed, I mean, in a lot of ways, Tete-a-Tete was very ahead anyway, in that for more than 10 years, we've made a video and posted it online of any live performance that we've done. So that's not as an alternative so much as an accessibility thing, a way of people being able to get to see a show if they can't get into the space and time that it happened, because they might be on another continent, or you might be too disabled, or for whatever reason. But this year we changed that so that they were events you paid to see. And I'll let you into a secret. There is one left at the end of next week, which you can go to for £1, but you can watch all the rest on our website now anyway. So if you follow the Tete-a-Tete link, they're all sitting there, and you're very welcome to browse whatever you like. God, I've got so much information to give on. I'd just like to also show you, take a look at these. Another thing I was very anxious about all the way through was we've got 67 million people in the UK, 12 million have no access to the internet at all. And I was really determined, rather like Nicola, I didn't want to just leave people behind. You know, you wanted to share stuff with everybody. So we did do this in two ways. One, that we made sure it's a rather useful thing about Zoom that you can dial in on a telephone. So people could dial in using landlines, and they did, even from the United States of America. So it's a rather old-fashioned thing. I think in the 1930s, you could dial into performances in London. And the other thing that we did was make these, oh no, I'll turn my background off so you can actually see what they are. I got, hang on. I'm having technological nightmares. Yeah, we designed a postcard for every single show so that whoever produced a show could send these or use them however they like. So I know that Laura, who made this, she posted her postcards through the letterboxes of everybody in her village in the southwest of England. There's one about nuclear war, there's loads of them. And lots of those people either watched online or dialed into the show. I think I should stop talking and ask me questions. I don't know what else I can tell you. Huge amount happened. It was absolutely thrilling, and I feel in a state of exhaustion now, really. It's taken me about a month to recover from forcing all this through with such determination, but I feel very happy and proud that I did, and proud of all the artists who took part.
That's great. Thank you, Bill. Very inspiring, and your determination, as always, is really infectious. I think also thank you for the word of caution. I think that was a point that needed to be made at some point during today. Just always with the reminders, it's good to keep us on track.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add, Helgi, our poor technical director, David, who I think you know, he had this awful job of measuring people all the time, of going through the government rules and telling everybody and sanitizing the piano if one person touched it and then another had to touch it. And it was really, really miserable. But what was the most inspiring thing, I think, about the whole festival was everybody looking on this as a creative opportunity. Rethinking their shows meant you had to think about what you really cared about and focus on that. And I just read through all the artist feedback yesterday, slightly nervous about the question, was the policing of the COVID regulation intrusive? Did you find it difficult? And everybody said, no, thank goodness you did that. Thank you for that. It was fantastic. And I think that's right. I think when you're making something, it's too easy to be careless. And if you possibly can, give somebody the job of keeping an eye on that, and you will never regret it.
With that being said, it's really impressive that 18 plus shows went ahead anyway with those really strict restrictive framework guidelines and such. So I think we're all very impressed by that. Let's see the chat. Let's see if there's any questions. Michael Betteridge says, assuming we don't need to socially distance next summer, will you do anything differently in the year 2021 festival, considering what you've learned through your experience this year? What are the silver linings that you will take forward?
I think I've already said it, really. It was the closeness that it fostered with the companies, and how Zoom brought us all together. I think it was a mixture of Zoom and the time people had because they couldn't work in a normal way. I mean, that's, you know, talking of determination, the other thing I was really determined to do was to not, I mean, we've had a terrible time in the UK because most of us are freelance. We don't work for anybody except ourselves and take on lots of different contracts, and they've all gone. So we don't have somebody paying our salaries. I'm lucky because tete-a-tete is half my life. I've lost all the rest of my work, so I have half my income, but I'm still a lucky one. So for all these artists, I was really determined they should be looked after. So I've really thrown myself, I'll pop it in the chat in a minute, into an organisation called Freelancers Make Theatre Work, which is certainly you should know about in the UK. It might be interesting abroad. And second, I think there was so much talk about, oh, how am I live? I've lost all my work. This is a nightmare. I don't know what to do. And it made me feel like, as an artist, you are sustained by your work. You are sustained by the human connection that has run through every conversation in this session. And that is incredibly important. It matters almost as much as food and drink, possibly more. And so I was really determined that as many people as possible would continue to exist as an artist as well as an organism that needs to be fed and housed.
Yes, amen. No more questions for now. I think your talk was just so all-encompassing that
yeah.
Tanya Holland says, last question before we move on. Bill, how can you capture the attention of the larger houses, establishment, opera reviewers? It still seems so difficult to be visible in the UK if you're either working with communities or small scale.
That is a really, 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 really interesting question. And it has been a really big annoyance this year, and I've come out the other end and I just think I don't care. I mean, I'd love everybody who is in the festival to get more public attention, but I found it extraordinary that while we were reopening the theatre, the British media were full of stories of how the theatre could not open. They would not talk about us. They did not talk about what we did. Nobody mentioned the pilot for the government in July, even though it was the first opera that happened. And having analysed the reasons why, I think it's all about, this is a really big conversation, it's all about how the arts in the UK are driven by rich people who wear trousers and are white, basically, and that's what it's all about, and that's all they're interested in. It's about big business, like the whole of the UK economy, and it's not really worth worrying. I think you have to make your work as an artist with integrity and try and connect to as many people as possible, and not be wounded by the fact that if you are not commodifiable product, that that hurts you. You shouldn't let that hurt you. Just do good work that connects with people and make memories for everyone and really care about it.
Fantastic last words, I think. Thank you so much, Bill. Very inspiring. Next up, we have, let's see. That is Fjóla, isn't it? From Listahátíð Reykjavík Arts Festival. She's going to talk to us about Listagjöf, or which would roughly translate as the gift of art. I'll hand the mic over to you now.
Thank you, Helgi. Thank you, Helgi and Guja, for having me. I'm really excited to tell you about the art gifts. Yes, my name is Fjóla. I'm the Executive Director of Reykjavík Arts Festival. And I will be telling you about our art gifts, which took place just last weekend in Reykjavík. But before I dive into the story of art gifts, I would like to tell you a bit about the backstory. Now, I have some screenshots and photos that I want to share with you. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Start here. Yeah, art gifts. So We planned on having our, now I don't know where to watch. I have you guys over here so I can see you. Yeah, we planned on having our festival 6th to the 21st of June this year. But when the pandemic hit us, and after a lot of deliberation, we made a decision to not cancel the festival, but to postpone the festival program until both society and the artists were ready. Today, we have finished just over a third of our program and only postponed about 5 projects until 2022. We're still hoping that we can finish the festival before 12 months have passed since the opening. This is a festival that normally takes place over 2 to 3 weeks. So this is quite a different business model for us. And this year was the festival's 50th anniversary. So the year was really supposed to be something. And sure it was. Yeah. Okay. This year, we plan to have our festival hub in this beautiful building in Reykjavík. Our hub was supposed to be a 3-week intensive hub of takeovers by niche art collectives, artist talks, concert series, and more. However, in the middle of the first COVID wave, our partners at Iðnó went under and left the building. However, the city of Reykjavík owns Iðnó and offered us to take over the building for the hub for the whole summer. We could, of course, not say no and started programming the whole summer, going from 3 weeks to 3 months. This went on during June and July, but when the second wave hit us here in Iceland in August, we had to close the doors. But we actually still hold the keys to Iðnó, but haven't been able to do much there ever since. Now with Iðnó, we did receive funds from the city, so we could actually program for the whole summer, but we haven't been able to make use of it all. And we just really felt the need that we had to do something more. In August, our friends at the Helsinki Festival told us about how they planned to realize their festival this year. And one of the art directors, Marco Attisari's plans were art gifts. Art gifts are short 5-minute performances of music, dance, circus, or poetry, safely delivered in front of the recipient's house or under their balcony. It is a personal gift from one person to another, ordered through a simple web app, free of charge. Marco in Finland is such a visionary that he had this web app created with the condition that it would be made open source, so that any festival or anyone could recreate the web app for their own city or location. This app can be easily translated to any language and adapted to any location. Helsinki divided the city into 7 locations and had 20 artists travel around for 3 days, giving a total of 300 art gifts. We translated the app into Icelandic, made customizations to our location, and divided Reykjavík into 10 zones. We hired 20 acts to travel around 1 zone each for 1 day with a total of 140 art gifts that were delivered last weekend. We had music, circus, slam poetry, dance, and drag, and the music was all kinds: jazz, classical, world music, pop, and musicals. I want to tell you a bit about the app in case you want to take it up, because it's so great. Because the setup of the app is really simple, or quite simple for a programmer. And the instructions from Finland with the open source code are extremely well done. But in spite of this, we got really high quotes from programmers to create this for us. And we just thought every krona which goes into developing the program is taken out of the artist budget. That's just unacceptable. So I asked my husband, who is a programmer, to look over the instructions from Finland and to review the proposals to see if this was really the case, that it had to be so expensive. And once he started looking at the programming and the instructions, there was no way back. He was hooked. And we started working on this one weekend in our family summer house. And 3 weeks later, we delivered the art gifts. Now, regarding the layout and the look of the app, we just added our logo to the program, created a different hero image, and changed the color of the frame, because doing this quickly was more important than a more localized look for us. It's really easy to maneuver for the user. The user just enters information about the receiver of the gift. And what is best about it, they add a description to why they want to give this person the gift. That's a really beautiful part of this program. And the giver gets finds an available slot and just books it. When the user has reserved an art gift, the person receives both an email and a text message. And the admin part is quite simple too. There's a bit of manual labor, however, setting up all the slots and assigning artists to them, but after that, everything is very automatic. The artist gets a link sent through the system to their own program, like this, with all the relevant information for the gift. Like the name of the receiver, name of the giver. There's a link to call through with an unidentified number. They get the description of why this person deserves an art gift and any more information about the location. And it's really nice how the program always zooms into the address of the receiver. So, Monday last week, we launched the program and opened for orders at 8 p.m. At around 8:05, all gifts in downtown Reykjavík were gone. And around 8:15, about 90% of all the gifts were booked. There seemed to be so much thirst for art and events. We had a big advertising plan, and we just canceled that and instead put more power into documenting the whole weekend. One of the many beauties of this project is that people order art for others and give a reason for why they want this person to receive the gift. And the reasons are beautiful. I love the fact that while so many people thought of their elders and of friends going through difficult times, we also had grandparents order an art gift for their 7-year-old grandson's birthday. We requested that the art gift giver would be present on location to greet the artist and make sure the receiver was home. And the artist would only call the gift givers a short time before the event, and until that time, the artist was unknown to both. So it was all a big surprise, which made it even more exciting. Our artists were met with so much joy everywhere they went. This is a mother and daughter. The daughter had ordered a gift for her mother, and they got this, actually the only trio of the weekend, this musical trio. Most of the gifts were received outdoors in spite of the very cold rain on Saturday. And where the gifts were received indoors, people wore their masks. Everyone was very careful and abiding by the strict social restrictions in Iceland these days, and everyone was so respectful of each other. It was so great. Here we have Hringleikur, a circus act who performed only outdoors. They just had on their woolen Icelandic pullovers and their waterproof pants and performed in the rain. Here they are performing in the parking lot of a retirement home. The residents here watch them from their windows. We were really happy with all the media coverage we received. The media seems to be just as tired of dark and dreary COVID news as us, and they really showed up for the event. And our main news station here, they followed the artists around for the whole day actually, and made a really good segment on the project. They both interviewed artists and the audiences. So we were really happy also to get the artists all the exposure. The social media of this project just blew up and was everywhere. And you can see it on our Instagram page in highlights, and everything that was shared during the weekend. This project really sparked joy in the artists, the givers, the receivers, the media crew, the photographers, the videographers, and last but not least to the staff of the festival. We finally got some action and an event that we planned and did not have to postpone even once. Electricity is not really an option in this event, and neither is a piano, hence all the accordions. But some of the artists had wireless speakers, which worked very well for this type of an event. We did create a survey immediately after the weekend, and we have gotten like a 70% reply on the survey, which we sent out to all the people who booked these orders. And everyone was just so happy with not knowing and with the surprise. And people were so grateful to have this one-on-one FaceTime with their friends and families, social distancing, of course, and to get a live event. We are all a little bit tired of Zoom events, even though they definitely have are also great for their use, but to have real live performances in front of you, it's nothing beats that. Yeah. So just a few more pictures to show you. I don't really have much more to say. I love this one, the drag queen and the audience all in masks. It's poetic. And so we will always remember this time when we see pictures from this year, people with masks. So crazy. And yeah, I've seen a video of people dancing in their garden to this accordion player. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's actually, I think this is my last photo. So I will unshare my screen if I can find that now.
Thank you, Fjóla. What an inspiring presentation. It's really amazing. I don't know if there's some questions from our, not in the chat yet, but yeah, were you there? Did you see a lot of them? Were you?
I did manage to get around a bit, yeah. But my main role for this weekend was to watch our emails.
Okay, yes.
If something came up, I had to be on duty and had to be able to reply or let the artists know if there were any changes. Yeah. And yeah.
There's a question here, did you reach different audiences to usual?
Yes, we did. We actually found out that about a quarter of the people that ordered these gifts have never been to an event at the festival. And we went into almost every neighborhood of the city. And we know that our main audiences are in like the center neighborhoods of Iceland, of Reykjavík, I mean. And but we went to the upper neighborhoods, like we call it here, every to the neighborhoods further away. And it was really joy. It was big joy for us. And to go into new neighborhoods, like I went to see Gissur and Matti sing in Grafarholt, and they were just next to a house being built. Wow. But we were also in downtown Reykjavík, next to the old colorful houses. So there was a large spectrum there.
And there's a question from Guðrún. Such a great initiative. Did all the artists get paid?
Of course they did.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yeah, because we had those funds from Reykjavík that we hadn't been able to spend in the hub. We asked them for permission to spend it on this, and they of course, yes, please. Yeah. And since we skipped paying a programmer to do the program for us, we could also use that money to have more artists. Mm-hmm. And we actually just thought at first that we would have just solo acts going around, but yeah. It's much more fun for the artists to do it two and two together. So we just asked people to go for it, and then it was really worth it to spend some money on the artists in this case.
Mm-hmm. So there are some comments. Lika from Latvia, she's based in Berlin, I know as well. She says, my previous life was in IT, so I can think of few programs who would, programmers would want to help if this is happening somewhere else. That's great to know.
Yeah.
Tanya is moving to Iceland. That's great. Sam Glaser, he is asking,
Guya froze for me at least, but I can answer this question if you can hear me.
Where is it?
Yeah, you're there. Okay.
Yeah, are you back, Guya? We'll just continue and she'll join.
Yeah. People did not sign up for any specific event. There was, it was totally, we didn't tell people any names beforehand because we didn't want to raise false hopes, saying that the Páll, the big pop star would be going around, and then people would be really disappointed not to get him or something like that. So we just decided to keep it all a secret until maybe just 5 minutes before. Then people knew who they were getting. Some people, most people really liked that, but I know some people got a bit anxious who they would get.
I don't know what happened, but I think my connection broke. So now the whole chat, Helgi, my chat has disappeared. So maybe you can ask the next question.
Take over. And also Fiola, you can see it. So
yes, I can see it.
So many inspiring.
I can share links to the information we received from Helsinki. There's a link to their GitHub directly to the instructions and the open source code. And actually the costs of it, apart from the programming, isn't a lot, because the emails are all sent through MailChimp, transactional emails, and was like $20 or euros extra for a month. And then the text message services, we got that through just a local provider that was also, really within budget, very, very budget friendly. Mm-hmm. And then it's we have a Firebase, which is a Google thing, and that was also just a low cost addition to it.
Yeah.
So we could really spend a lot of money on artists and documentation. So everybody's got a lot of great photos of them, and we will be releasing a video next week.
is this a project that maybe the Listahátíð, the festival, would like to continue in the years to come?
Yes, even though it's a very COVID-friendly project, it's also just a really lovely project on its own, and it can very well be done during normal times. We have also asked in the survey if people would be willing to pay for something like this, and most of them would like that, but then they would like to know who was coming. But it's also the beauty of it, of course, is also free, that it's free.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to get some good sponsors for a project like this, to be able to do it again.
Fantastic.
Could you share the links with us in the chat?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, because it's all public.
We will also share them in the, I don't know if you heard it, Fjóla, but we have created a Facebook group. So if you will join that, or I can,
Can you add me to that group?
Yes, I will, for sure.
And maybe you should share that link again. It's sort of.
I will share it a few times before we are done today. So try to get as many people to sign up.
One last question from Tanya. How did you choose the artists? Did you put out a call?
No, because we want to do this quick. So, and we chose artists that are well known, are used to gigging, like going around. They're tour friendly. We can trust them to be really self-sufficient and independent. So that's how we just chose our artists for this time. Maybe one day we will have an open call, but because fast was the operative word in this case, we decided to go this way. But we also wanted to have some different acts, and not only have like pop artists, but different, show some a spectrum.
This is great. I think we have to continue, but thank you so much, Fjóla.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
There's a question from Sam Glazer in the chat. Maybe you can just answer it there if you want. And I will just continue with the event.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Okay, before I announce our last speaker, I just want to say that my wife sent me a private message just a few minutes ago, and she suggested a hashtag for us to use. And I think it's pretty good. It's hashtag opportunities, and I'll put it down there. And we can take that or leave it, but I'll just put it into the cosmos and see if that becomes a thing. Opportunities. Be a nice way for us to connect with material that we share or something like that. Right, time for our last speaker. That's Fat Lady Opera from the UK with their show Persephone's Dream. And they actually performed in the Tete Festival this year, which Bill was talking about before. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say. Tanya.
Hi, and can I introduce Sarah Booth as well, with similar background. Both on brand today. Thanks very much. It's been absolutely amazing hearing, and I think there'll be some repeat tropes and motifs that you'll probably get from our presentation too. I thought it might be, as I was sort of like thinking about this, we're going to co-present this, by the way, but one of the things that struck me was that it might be interesting to see, well, like, basically, as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, where have we come from in terms of Fat Lady Opera? So lots of community interaction, quite close community interaction, intergenerational, having fun with the audience in amongst us, sharing our space. And where did we sort of get to right at the beginning was this strange, disembodied, incomplete transaction, sort of out of sorts, I think, is the best way to describe the first month of lockdown for me, in terms of thinking about how to continue working with and the community aspect of the company. We moved very quickly. In fact, I think like this is what I'm hearing all around the table. Everybody's just been working very quickly, and we've sort of all got on board with the fact that it's not going to be perfect in the way that we might normally be working. We're going to be focused on process rather than product. We're going to be all learning a new vocabulary, and our sense of upskilling is going to go through the roof and sometimes drive us to the edge of the cliff. So yeah, I think some of the challenges that those are some of the challenges that I think Sarah and I are going to be talking through. But so Persephone's Dream didn't exist even in a concept form before lockdown, and it sort of didn't really. I think Bill and I were having a conversation about whether Fat Lady Opera might do something at some point at TET, and I rang him at some point, and I think I said, I've got a bit of an idea, not quite sure how it's going to work, but at the moment oops, I need to come off screen to show you this. Not stop video, stop, just go into none. Hold on a second, background and filters. There you go, right. It sort of looks like this, which is that there's a back wall of a living room, and there's an audience member watching their granddad or daughter perform to a Zoom, and the Zoom gets thrown to a big screen somewhere in a public domain where we have one singer and a cellist and a back wall audience member there. And I don't think Bill had the picture. He just had to do it conceptually. And out of that, and that it would be sort of drawing on the idea of Persephone and the idea of a mass hibernation, and what mass hibernation might do to a species in terms of how it affects our understanding of who we are and what we are to each other. And on that note, I'm going to hand you over to Sarah, who came in very early on. In fact, what I should say, one more thing, is that the very first element of this was a creative exchange event online, very much like this, where we spent, I don't know, half a day throwing around different exercises and trying out ideas and drawing down stuff. Sarah, over to you.
Well, I might just throw it quickly back to you, Tanya, because I think when we did that event after the show, my mum and everyone said it was so useful to hear your personal start for the project, how you were, was when you came off your bike or something, and it was your feeling of isolation, or it was a personal thing that made you want to do Persephone.
Yes, yeah, I had an accident on my bike, and weirdly, I live in a very lovely, kind town, and it was quite a bad accident in the fact that I'd done my ribs in, couldn't stand up, leg was bleeding, and two different people sort of hesitated, looked, and then walked on. I don't think they would do that now. I think we understand more about what we can and can't do, but at the time it sort of crystallized my feeling of being other and no longer part, no longer belonging. Luckily somebody did stop a bit later on, but in that first instance, and I don't sort of, it's a really interesting thing, I don't feel any anger about that, or maybe a bit of disappointment. But I do feel like it was very symptomatic of a landscape where nobody really knew the rules anymore, and where almost by accident people were retreating into themselves. And so anyway, over that sort of next few weeks on my walks, which I started to do very regularly and always alone, sorry, it also corresponded with the news that in our hibernation, planet Earth was actually taking a great big sigh of relief in some ways. And so I really started to ask some big existential questions about the value of the human race. But anyway, there you go. Yes.
Yeah, which I think is important to understanding like what the piece was and became as well. So I'm a designer and worked with Tanya very closely from the beginning of the project to work out what it was and how we rehearse it. For me, I know Tanya really struggled with the Zoom rehearsals. So what the initial idea for this piece, which Bill has just got on his background now, was this Zoom chorus of a community chorus which is zoomed in and live. And so we did some rehearsals on Zoom, and I was able to be there a lot of the time, which I can't as a designer be in the room all of the time, like financially or creatively, with all the other things to do. So that was a really nice and different thing. What do I want to share with you? We started, I'm trying to look at what I've got here on my virtual backgrounds. So yeah, we started playing with, as Tanya said, you can't sing, or has come up often, singing in a big group is the big no-no of COVID. So what can you do with a group of singers through Zoom? And we did lots of working with gesture, and this sort of idea of golden thread came up, and I just found it so much fun just playing around. And I made loads of weird videos of myself.
Come a bit closer, Sarah, to the mic.
Oh, this is me.
We can't hear you, Sarah, so I'm going to speak for you as you're
sorry. I'm trying to move out of the frame so you can see like interacting with videos of yourself. So it's like, what can we do with a pre-recorded, and this is all within the functionality of Zoom. So I just recorded these videos of myself on Zoom, and where's the one? We got to a point where we had ones that I recorded multiple versions.
I can show you one of those if you want.
Can I get that up? I'm trying to find which one that is now. May have disappeared.
Here's one that I did with one of the...
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Looking at how to design. Also, a big thing of mine is sustainability, and how do we like have less stuff. So trying to design just using the functionality of Zoom, and what can we do with that, rather than because I didn't want to be sending out loads of costumes, which is a COVID risk. And trying to do something which used the functionality of Zoom and still meant like the chorus felt they had an identity. I did a lot of playing around with Snapchat filters. I don't know whether I can get it on here. Oh yeah, so this is the one I made. We didn't use it in the end because it was beyond the capabilities of our chorus, but we sort of ended up with a background of sorry, my computer's being really slow, but of golden wheat, and I was playing around with how we dress people with Snapchat filters. How can you sort of costume with tech? As I say, the functionality of the computers of everyone involved didn't stretch to that point, but it was really fun to sort of stretch myself and have a play with. I also found it really interesting, sort of, so this is our initial, what can we do in a 6 meter square with only 3 rings? Having play, because this piece was born in lockdown, rather than changing the piece to mold it to lockdown scenarios, it was very much, we designed and developed the piece around these 3 forces interacting with each other and how they could be this still presence in the middle. So the design then sort of went to a place where all of the activity or things that happened within the piece to Persephone sort of happened out of this one big dress that had, I think this is one of the first sort of designs that moved around the space, but lots of things changed and changed for her, and that was sort of inspired a bit by the Valentine exhibition.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Sarah. Just to tell you, when you move like that to the side, then Zoom thinks you're out of the picture and it mutes you completely.
Oh, okay, so I just have to stay low.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should have shared screen, but never mind. But anyway, just to give you a glimpse into our process, and I don't know whether, Tanya, you want to take on where we got to in terms of the performance.
Yeah, so I must say as well, for me, the frustrations were to feel like I was wanting to be in a 3D space where the imagination of the muscle and the tendons was alive and sort of riffing off other people with muscle. So that's very much, oops, sorry. That was very much a frustration that actually didn't really go away, and I just had to park it and think about bodies in a different way. And one of the delights was, number one, every time I met with Sarah, there'd be this sort of further exploration of what Zoom could and couldn't do, and the idea of pattern. And so the ensemble movement, which has always been a big thing for me anyway, really became it's like a sort of one of the abiding things of the whole show, is how to feel like ensemble was happening, a bit like sort of a Japanese opera, and also the Klimt aesthetic. They all really fed into this wonderful space that became the world of Persephone for me, and the world of Persephone's dream, and allowed me to not worry so much about the fact that the chorus and the soloists weren't in the same space, and so that ping of energy that I really love when I'm directing to feel wasn't there, but to start to sense it in different ways in which particularly the chorus, for me, seeing moments when they realised and or together suddenly something magical crossed these multiple screens, was just true moments of delight. The other thing at this same time, so the opera was also being written in the sense that all the compositional material was being written at a pace and being sort of sent over, and so getting bits of that would then inform bits of what we would do, and you'll hear a little bit of the show in a second. where we got to with it was we did a production at the Cockpit Theatre on the 18th
Thanks,
of
Bill.
September. Thanks, Bill, yeah. Which frankly, I think, and Bill, you actually said to me the day after that having seen the morning's rehearsal where frankly we couldn't get the connectivity to work, the chorus couldn't hear what was going on the stage. The light, I mean, honestly, it was probably the worst tech experience of my entire life. But then in the evening, the magic happened. And yeah, so there's a lot of tech stuff that if anyone is interested in talking through. One thing I would say is if you're thinking of what we're all doing at the moment is we're working outside of the black box. We're working outside of theatre space. And theatre technicians are very used to their technical equipment and the setup that's within the theatre. But we're all bringing in new and different interfaces. And so allowing time to spend with your technical director or production manager, whoever that is, in the space to test everything that you want to do. That would be my one. I mean, I've got loads of takeaways, but that is the takeaway that I'll be taking into future iterations of Zoom chorus work. Yeah, I think we should show because I'm just looking at the time, I think we should show the little, we've got a little bit of the film to show you. These are photographs essentially of the production. Yeah, are you happy with that, Sarah? Is there anything else you wanted to say? Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to, I'd quickly just say what the experience was like performing in a real space. I thought it was absolutely magical. I had the best day, despite like doing all of the running around and the pain of the morning tech. What I noticed, because Tanya and I were sort of tech boxing as well because of the few people that we could have in our team. We were all taking on other roles, so I was hosting Zoom and Tanya was calling the show, and we could see the audience coming in. And I think something that Test does beautifully is building, they have built quite a community of people, and people were sitting far away from each other, but everyone was waving at each other. It was gorgeous. And for me, it was so nice that there's space between people. It meant that you could acknowledge the people around you rather than feeling totally squished and hemmed in. I know it's not financially practical, but it was great. And everyone was given their menu as they sat down, so they could order a drink and not feel uncomfortable for the kind of half an hour or time it took to get everyone in. So that already, the kind of establishment of a COVID secure environment within to watch the piece felt like a magical thing as well for me.
Great, so here you go. So this is a sort of a mashup, yeah, sound quality, forgive, etc. Here we go. Oops. Hopefully everybody can see this. Let me bring it to the center. There we go. Can everybody hear a ticking clock?
Might want to turn the sound up a bit.
The door is shut, the window closed. All safe and sound within. The tide runs inward, unsure where it belongs. All safe and sad within. Mountains gave the breath of wings, and wide seas long. Look up, starlings wait my eye. The trouble of time cold, page torn, scratching at my mind. I never saw, I never noticed broken things before. All doors are shut, all windows closed, all flares and ghosts. Chief and cold. That thrill is cold, page torn, scratching at my mind. We chief and cold
And that's pretty much it. Stop sharing. So, yeah. It was, so Helgi, it was fun, exciting, scary, frustrating. I think I went through pretty much every emotion that I could possibly go through with this production, and heightened because normally, as for all of us, we're working together with teams. We can go and get a cup of coffee and just decompress, and that wasn't possible. It was sort of, yeah. Yeah. Oh, thanks for putting that up, the full show. Yeah. It just became really important, I think, for me, that we should ask ourselves the questions about what we want. We've been saying this all the way along. Is this an opportunity to reset? Have we got, can we do some things differently and from now on and better? And I'm really worried that that question might just drift off as we go into the new year.
Excellent, thank you so much. Wow, so many ideas and so many inspiring things happening. First of all, I think you guys have to have a seminar for all of us to teach us how to do that slide background moving Zoom thing.
It's really good fun.
Yeah. All the there's one. I noticed that there's Joe from the who was in the chorus. Curious Eyes is here today, and making the films with all the chorus members was amazing. And it was one of the upskilling. Sorry, I haven't mentioned that about, and you mentioned this yesterday, Sarah, is working. One of the big things, and it's such an amazing thing to have come out of this, but also something that I really want to pursue, is the upskilling of all the community participants that we work with.
And ourselves, like we didn't know what we were doing before. We were all learning together and are so much better at Zoom now. I think back to the meetings me and Bill used to have on Skype, and I was used to, when we started, because Bill moved to Cornwall, I had started doing some meetings already on Skype, but I was so bad at it. I feel like now I know how to do it properly.
Wow. Yes. Before we go into questions, I just want to say we are at the 2 o'clock mark. And I just want to say that we will use the Facebook group for the general discussions. So we won't do that now because we're out of time. But I'd rather use the time for questions for Fat Lady Opera. And then we all can share what we want to share in the Facebook group and ask further questions there. So back to your project, guys. Yes, this creative process of reacting to yourself in video, it's absolutely brilliant. And I saw a few other people said the same in the chat. And I just want to ask you, Sarah, like, I don't know, I just want to know more.
Well, where did it start? I think it's because it sort of did become a joke that I had to come up with a new technological thing every time I had a meeting with Tanya, and find a new way of using Zoom. And I did a thing that you can do in Zoom, which you can just record the meeting, and you can have meetings with yourself. You don't need to invite anyone else. So if you could just click on your own meeting room and press record, and when you stop pressing record, it does individual files as well and just automatically downloads them. So what I did was I did a little video of myself, downloaded it, put it as my virtual background, then did a video of myself interacting with my video, and then recorded that, and eventually built it up to add 8 of myselves in. But it was just one of the things that we discovered through play, and I think is so important. And there's something that we're missing sometimes from the not having a rehearsal room is play. So just having a play with the technology we are now rehearsing using.
And there was something that immediately that lent itself to the fact that we were having to administer self-care. So we were having to be a parent to ourselves, sometimes be a sort of sister to ourselves, and our relationship with the person in the mirror, it just was too wonderful and rich in terms of its correlation with the content as well. I was overjoyed. Sarah's right. Basically, I did say to her, every time we meet, I'd really love you to thrill me with something new that I can do on Zoom. And she did.
Great. I'm just trying to find if there are any questions here. People are just typing so much into the chat, which is absolutely great. It's all so positive. I just have to sift through it a little bit to find if there are any questions.
Yeah.
I think your statements, people are just high on life after all these presentations. And I just want to highlight what Nicola said, normal has gone, never to return, which is absolutely true, at least in some way, if not all the ways.
So,
do you have any questions for?
No, I'm just so happy to. I think like it's 2 o'clock now, so people might have other plans. So I suggest that we continue this in our Facebook group, and I hope that we remain active there. And maybe this would be something that we can do regularly, like annually or biannually, or twice per year or something. And slowly build up a network of like-minded people in Iceland, the UK, and Nordic countries, and further. Helgi, thank you for controlling everything, and all the fantastic presenters and participants. I really enjoyed it.
Can I just say, I think we've definitely achieved our goal today, which was to portray, wait a second. Yes, sorry, just finding the keywords again. So I think we definitely achieved what we set out to do, is to talk about and share solutions, inspiration, and positivity. And I feel absolutely high after all of this, and I just want to go and create and work with all of you, and the world is beautiful, and thank you so much for all your presentations. Guya.
Thank you. Thank you. And see you on Zoom in real life in the music world. And stay safe and good luck with your projects. And thank you for giving for giving your time for our symposium. Thank you.
Thank you.